across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon, this is Talk Drive. I'm Peter Cardwell. We can't have anti-Semitism on our streets. That is what the Prime Minister said, but it's been the case for the last 2 years and beyond. We also know that in Birmingham, if you're a fan of a football club, Tel Aviv Maccabi's, well, you can't go to an Aston Villa match. This is absolutely outrageous. This is clearly two-tier policing. This is clearly two-tier safety in our society. We're going to be focusing on this story in the next 3 hours. Maybe the government, well, it's not up to the government, it's up to the West Midlands Police. Maybe they will change their mind. I certainly hope they do, because this is outrageous. We have members of Parliament of the House of Commons in this country saying that football fans are terrorists. No, they're not. They just want to go and watch their football club against Aston Villa. The president of the FA, well, that's Prince William. What's he said? Absolutely nothing. We have asked Kensington Palace. They haven't got back to us. Will he attend the game? We don't know. Loads of political reaction to this on the story today. We're going to hear from a Conservative MP, Saqib Bhatti. We're going to hear from Eric Pickles, Lord Pickles, who was the envoy against post-Holocaust issues. Jake Wallace-Simons is coming on in a second. Chris Phillips, the former Detective Chief Inspector of the Metropolitan Police, former event commander. And what's next in all of this? Are we going to say to Jews, sorry, you can't go to synagogue because that's a threat? It's outrageous. It has to stop. They can protect thousands of people in pro-Palestinian marches. Why can't they protect a few thousand football fans going to a football match? We're going to talk about that today. We're also going to talk about the threat from China. We're going to talk about Zelensky, who's at the White House. He'll be there in the next hour or so for a meeting with Trump. As always, I want your reaction to all of this. I can see the phones going already. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a text message. As I said, 87222. You can send me a WhatsApp text message. You can send me a WhatsApp voice note, less than a minute, please. You can also send me you can also give me a ring. All on the main number, 0344 499 1000. So much to get through. So many views from you that I want on the show. 0344 499 1000. Let's get started here on Talk Drive. Well, after a petition, let's just talk through this. There's a petition which was arranged by who else? Jeremy Corbyn and one of the pro-Gaza MPs who's part of his grouping in Parliament, calling for the ban of Maccabi Tel Aviv fans from next month's Europa League tie at Aston Villa because of safety. This match is going to be on the 6th of November. A club statement from Aston Villa confirmed Israeli away fans could not attend Villa Park next month. Here is the reaction of the local independent MP, Ayub Khan.
Well, excellent news for the people of Birmingham and, most importantly, the residents here in Aston. I launched a petition to oppose the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans from coming to Birmingham and then into the Aston Villa Stadium. The surrounding ward of Aston is a ward that sits within my constituency, and I had many residents and businesses express concern of the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans from coming into our area. Clearly, we have all witnessed the scenes in Amsterdam, the violence that was displayed by the fans the night before the match. We all watched and listened to those vile chants of hatred and racism, and so there's no space for that kind of behaviour here in Birmingham. There's certainly no space for that kind of conduct in Aston. So I'm very pleased that both the West Midlands Police and Aston Villa Football Club have now written to UEFA informing them of their decision not to allow any fans from entering Birmingham and Aston.
Well, let's just take apart what he said a little bit. That is Ayub Khan. A year ago in Amsterdam, he talked about the violence displayed by the fans in Amsterdam. Now, some of them certainly were violent. Some of them tore down Palestinian flags. Some of them said things they shouldn't have said. But what happened was that Maccabi supporters were attacked by anti-Semitic mobs after another Europa Cup match that was against Ajax. 7 people hospitalised, more than 20 injured after pro-Palestinian crowds ran amok, targeted the visiting Israelis in the Dutch city. The pogrom broke out after a chat room messages were exchanged calling for a Jew hunt. Does Ayub Khan mention that? Of course he doesn't mention that. Why? Well, we can draw our own conclusions from that. Similarly, another member of his grouping within Parliament, this is Ayub Khan's grouping, with Jeremy Corbyn, Iqbal Mohammed, the independent MP for Dewsbury and Batley, labelled Maccabi fans terrorists. Thank you for all who put the safety of Aston Villa fans, Birmingham residents and the British public, yeah, because he cares about them, above the Zionist and political pressure to let Israeli hooligans and terrorists run riot in our country. That is the view of Iqbal Mohammed, the MP for Dewsbury and Batley. He is in the same grouping as Ayub Khan, the person who welcomed this and failed to mention the anti-Jewish hatred against the Maccabi fans in Amsterdam. I wonder why. All of this led to an outcry right across the political spectrum, which said this decision is two-tier and should be reversed. I agree with that. Remember, it was only yesterday the Prime Minister promised to step up the fight against anti-Semitism. Let's hear his words. I think they might be a bit hollow. Let's hear what Keir Starmer said yesterday.
We have to step up in relation to defeating anti-Semitism. Action is what matters, and we're absolutely committed to that. The discussion we've had this morning was not about words. It was about what are the actions that are going to follow through from this. We're putting in an additional £10 million for the protection of the Jewish community. We want to work with you on that to really step up the work that the government is doing and to make sure that every single member of our Jewish community in this country feels safe, secure, and that this is where their home is. This is the country they are part of, and it's our job to make sure that that is absolutely reflected in a deep sense of security in this country.
A whole £10 million. A whole £10 million, really? Wow. What would that buy you? A new scanner in a hospital? Probably not, actually. And that's what he thinks of Jewish people in this country. £10 million. That's nothing. Nothing in government budgets. He says they need to step up. He says action is what matters. Is he stepping up today? Is he taking action? I don't think we've seen that action. I don't think we've seen the Prime Minister step up. The leadership may come from other places. Today, there is mounting pressure on the government to act to allow the Tel Aviv fans to continue their life as normal. This was the leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch, speaking earlier.
I think it is a national disgrace. This is something that the police should be able to deal with. We cannot be a country where we tell Jewish people that they can't come to watch football because their security is not going to be looked after. What I want to see is the police finding ways to make sure they can be secure and sending the message to the Islamists and those who are pushing anti-Jewish hatred that this does not happen in the UK.
Throughout the day, we've had reactions to this story. There still has not been the U-turn that is needed on this. Former Defence Secretary Grant Shapps, who is Jewish, said this to my colleague Alex Phillips earlier.
What kind of message does this send out that you may not go to Birmingham as a Jew if you happen to support this football team? And what will it feel like for other Jews who want to go to that match? Perhaps wearing a Star of David or something else. I mean, really, is this what it's come to, that we can't manage to police a football match in order to allow both sides to attend? It is the wrong decision. It must be overturned. Otherwise, the message about what this country is, where it's headed, is in completely the wrong direction.
Well, I'm going to speak to my guest in just a second. First of all, I just want to read out a couple of messages. Graham in Bushy says the ban on Maccabi Tel Aviv supporters is not because of the actions by its team supporters, but the police are concerned about the inability of their officers to properly control and deal with the external protesters who voted in an MP who stood on a pro-Gaza ticket. Graham in Bushy, don't disagree with that. Jane says Parliament should be in tomorrow to discuss this. Many of the politicians are to blame for this. They need to take a long, hard look at themselves. None of them are fit to govern this country. And the last one for the meantime, Lorraine says the message is loud and clear. Jews are not welcome in Britain. This is reminiscent of Nazi Germany. I weep whilst this reprehensible government, police and justice system surrenders to Islamist racism, intolerance and extremism. The imam preaching no mercy to Jews, we'll look at that clip a little bit later on, Lorraine, is more than inciting violence. Where are the police? He should be arrested without bail and sentenced to at least 31 months and then deported. He has no place in Britain, says Lorraine. Let's go to Jake Wallace-Simons. He's an author and columnist. His new book, Never Again, How the West Betrayed the Jews and Itself, possibly in need of an update your book, actually, in light of all of this. A great betrayal of Jewish fans here. Absolutely outrageous. What's your reaction, Jake?
Well, it is a betrayal of Jewish fans, and it's also a betrayal of the West itself, exactly as my book, grimly enough, predicted, because the failure to protect Jews is an expression of appeasement, giving in to, let's call it what it is, the Islamist mob who have organised this petition, put this pressure on the police with threats of anti-Semitic violence. I mean, you mentioned the imam. His name was Asrar Rashid, the local imam from Birmingham, who said, "We will not show mercy to Maccabi Tel Aviv fans travelling to Birmingham." I mean, he didn't even seem to get a non-crime hate incident. He didn't even get a knock at the door by the police, let alone the sort of sentence that Lucy Connolly, for example, was subject
Jake,
to.
just hold your fire just for a second. Let's hear what that imam said.
We safeguard the vulnerable from any type of exploitation. That is the character of a Muslim, who has a Muslim as a rahmah. Remember, rahmah is in its place. It's in its place. When the Tel Aviv fans come to Birmingham in a few weeks, we will not show them rahmah in Birmingham.
We will not show them mercy in Birmingham. That's what he was saying. Also, Iqbal Mohammed, the independent MP for Dewsbury and Batley. Thank you all who put the safety of Aston Villa fans, Birmingham residents and the British public above the Zionist and political pressure to let Israeli hooligans and terrorists run riot in our country. That's a member of Parliament, Jake.
That's right. We're seeing this really unpleasant and disturbing coalition between the street thugs and the street mobs on the one hand, and Islamist MPs who have been elevated to Parliament on the other. Don't forget, they came to be elected to Parliament on the back of a very divisive and thuggish campaign, which had their opposing candidates being chased, being intimidated, their supporters having their tyres slashed and so on. So it's street thuggery with a political movement attached to it that's got this pincer movement, not just on Jews, but on Britain itself, trying to uphold our sense of law and order, our sense of fairness, our sense of toleration, is becoming increasingly difficult with the advance of this mob. And the fact is that the more the police and the authorities appease them and don't draw a line and don't stand up to them and say this far and no further, the more and more emboldened they're going to become, choosing new targets, coming for new bastions of our society until they've taken over. That's what they want.
What should West Midlands Police do now? The Safety Advisory Group, or SAG, has said that it'll make a decision based on a risk assessment. If there's a change in the assessment of risk about the forthcoming match, the Safety Advisory Group will commit to review its decision as appropriate.
Well, it's all sort of bureaucracy speak, isn't it? But basically what they've got to do is the priority should be that Jews can come to a football match. It sounds like a pretty low bar in 2025, but this is where we've got to.
Jake? What's next? Do they say, well, there's been a terrorist attack on a synagogue in Manchester, therefore you can't go to synagogue anymore. Sorry, we can't guarantee your safety, therefore we're banning you. I mean, I just really worry about this. This is the tip of the iceberg.
Well, if we give in to this, that's what will be next, frankly. And the thing is that those, pro-Gaza independent MPs, they're wrapping it all up in the language of human rights, calling Jews terrorists and genocide committers and hooligans and so on and so forth. All they need to do is transfer that to Jews going to synagogue. Genocide supporting Jews have no right to make us feel uncomfortable by walking through our part of town to go to their synagogue. And suddenly you've got another replay of this in an even more sinister way. It's worth bearing in mind that anti-Semitism throughout the ages has always taken on the language of virtue in each generation. In medieval times, it saw Jews as being the Christ killers, therefore they needed to be guarded against and liquidated. In the 20th century, it saw Jews as an inferior race in Hitler's times, and now it's seeing Jews as genocide, apartheid supporters, white supremacists, all the other things. It's the same animus, but with different language. We cannot be fooled by this. We must see it for what it is and push back against it, because they're coming for the Jews first, but everybody else a short way behind.
Jake, as always, thank you. Jake Wallace-Simons, their author and columnist. His book is called Never Again: How the West Betrayed the Jews and Itself. Chris Phillips is with us, former Detective Chief Inspector at the Metropolitan Police, a former event commander for major sporting events and concerts at Twickenham Stadium. Chris, why can't the West Midlands Police just keep these fans safe?
Well, it'd be safe to say I've got the same feelings on this as you, Peter. I'm quite outraged that this decision's been taken. It has lowered the bar considerably on the threat picture, and it's basically quite clearly a political decision. Now, I don't think we can allow this to stand. But the trouble is, of course, by taking this action now, what they've done is actually raise the profile and raise the threat level for this match anyway. And I would suggest that perhaps if the West Midlands police aren't able to police this, then they're not also able to police other major events in Birmingham, because it's just outrageous.
And can they guarantee the safety of Jewish people in Birmingham in general, in all these different areas, especially in a city that's clearly got some Islamists there? I know 30% of Birmingham is Muslim. I'm not saying all of those people hate Jews by any stretch of the imagination, but there will be some who do. It's so unseemly, the celebration by some of these MPs. It's dangerous as well. But for West Midlands Police, what options do they have now? Should they review this? Can they review it? What should happen, do you think, Chris? And what is realistic to happen?
Well, I'll tell you what, just before we get to that point, I'd like to know why this has been. What are the actual reasons, the dangers, the intelligence that's come out? That should be made public. I mean, there will be some things that perhaps aren't, but why is it? Is the rationale because it's too dangerous for these fans to come to Birmingham? Because if it is, that's a whole new problem that the West Midlands.
What happens then? I mean, can the government call on the army to help manage this event? I mean, what happens?
This is the most ridiculous part of this, and of course, Aston Villa. I think that ground has been put forward to represent international matches in the future. What happens
that's right.
if Israel end up playing?
Well, the 2028 Euros, if Israel qualifies for that, are we suddenly going to say, oh, you can only play at certain grounds? I mean, this is outrageous.
Well, this is, I mean, listen, I go back to the 80s when we had full-scale punch-ups at pretty much every football match, and particularly, I used to do Chelsea quite a lot, and we used to have to bus in fans to prevent them getting assaulted. I mean, we would literally, encase them in police officers to make sure they didn't get assaulted, and then keep them back at the end of the game and take them out again. The police in this country have dealt with this for generations, and this shouldn't be an issue. And the fact that it's now been made an issue, as I say, just increases the threat level even more than it was before.
I mean, I can see a clear politicisation here. I can see the police being politicised. I can see this decision being politicised. Is that an assessment you agree with, Chris?
Absolutely, and I think that's the most outrageous thing. And I've always been a big arguer against politicising the police, particularly when the Conservatives brought in these police crime commissioners. The last thing that the police should be doing is being politicised, and that's what's happened, and this is the result of that kind of thing.
Chris, as always, thank you. That's Chris Phillips there. He is a former Detective Chief Inspector in the Metropolitan Police. He's overseen the security for many events. He knows of what he speaks. Alicia is in Chelmsford and has given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Alicia, you're very welcome to talk. What would you like to say?
Hi, Peter. It's a good job you weren't on air on Talk last night, because I fear you'd have had to use the bleep button for the number of expletives I was shouting at the TV.
I think a number of people are in that position today. I'm struggling to hold it together temper-wise. It's so outrageous, Alicia. Tell us your story.
I can feel your anger. Look, I'd like to start by saying that I'm so grateful for people like you and your colleagues, Julia, Alex, everyone, who understand the difference between good and evil, right and wrong, decency and disrespect. And thank you to your viewers and listeners as well, who've bravely called out the disgusting Jew hatred in the UK.
Well, thank you for that.
I'll tell you what it feels like for us Jews. It's like we're in a boxing ring and we take a punch, but we get up. Then we get another punch and we get up. And so it continues. And just when we think we can't take another blow, whack, it comes again. And this week began for me with tears of joy at the release of the 20 living hostages. I hugged my grown-up son and literally bawled my eyes out with relief. It's a day I prayed for 2 years. Now, the decision to ban Maccabi Tel Aviv is discriminatory. Since when did it become okay to victim blame by banning the potential victims of violence rather than ensuring their safety? It's the same with the hate marches when people holding up placards asking for people to stand by British Jews get arrested rather than those chanting their vile Jew hatred. It's upside down. What is it the police truly fear? Are our freedoms now dictated to us by Islamist extremists and those on the far left? What's next? Who will ban us next? This is exactly what happened in 1930s Germany. Never again is now. It's abhorrent. Now, as an Israeli-born British Jew who served 25 years in the police, I can tell you, Peter, I am deeply hurt that the lack of appropriate action has emboldened the Jew haters. I've always stood up in defence of our police, but why are they kowtowing to bullies?
Do you feel they're being politicised, Alicia?
I do, 100%. I never used to have this when I was in the police. It never felt like this. It was all without fear or favour, but it just doesn't feel like that anymore. And why do they allow chants of globalise the intifada and from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free? These are chants of Jew hate, the annihilation of my place of birth.
But where's the political leadership, Alicia, as well? You have the Mayor of London saying that he does not believe from the river to the sea is always anti-Semitic. He was contradicted by the Prime Minister, who seems weak. The Prime Minister says they need to take action. It's action, not words. What action is he taking?
He's taking no action whatsoever. I'm disgusted. I agree with Trump. It's a terrible, terrible mayor that we've got. Now, these are chants of Jew hate, the annihilation of my place of birth, the only place in which I can honestly say to you, Peter, that I now feel safe.
Yeah, there's so many Jewish people who've said very similar things to me. I've actually was speaking to a younger Jewish person who said it's not when you move to Israel, sorry, it's not if you move to Israel, it's when. Alicia, great call. Thank you for your call. I really appreciate that. That's Alicia in Chelmsford there. Loads to talk about in all of this. Give me a shout, 0344 499 1000. We're going to talk in a second about the BBC Gaza documentary. Guess what? It breached Ofcom's code. No surprise there. We'll talk to a former head of religion and ethics there, Akhil Ahmed, who always speaks good sense. We'll talk to him in a second.
They're making a mess of things. They don't know what they're doing. They're incompetent. They're doing the wrong policies. But I think the real reason is because they've been thinking about how do we deal with Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage is going to be taking all our seats with Reform UK. Yeah. They're going to be breaking down the red wall. And so they're thinking, they thought about, oh, well, let's stand close to him. Right. Let's try and out-Farage Farage. And then they've settled on trying to just attack him and blame Brexit and blame him for everything in the hope that they'll shore up some of their support when if and when there's going to be an election.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Lots of reaction to this story about Maccabi Tel Aviv being banned from Aston Villa. Brian says, another day of shame for our country. When you think it can't get any worse, we wake up to this nonsense. Dear Lord, when will it end? Jason in the Lake District. Lammy, Starmer, Corbyn, Rayner are all responsible. The hate marches every week for 2 years, the two-tier policing, the creation of Islamophobia laws looming. Our country is being given over to the Islamists because our leaders are spineless. We are now back in 1930s Germany because of weak governments who fear losing the Muslim vote. If this isn't treason, then I don't know what is. If the police can't police the match, send in the army to protect them. Enough is enough. And just a final one from Margaret in North Yorkshire, that our police felt it okay to ban Maccabi fans because they are not prepared to police an Islamist mob is an utter disgrace and little removed from National Socialist Germany. Have we learned nothing from the appeasement years in the 1930s? Has this government and previous governments not realised their appeasement of the mob for the last 2 years has brought us to this point? This appeasement must stop. The shame of it. Lots to discuss there. 0344 499 1000 if you want to get your views on the air. Let's talk about the BBC now, because the Gaza documentary, the Gaza How to Survive a War Zone, featuring narration from a boy whose father held a position in the Hamas-run administration. This breached the broadcasting code. This is Ofcom. An investigation has found that. There's now going to be an apology at 9 o'clock on BBC Two. The regulator said a failure to disclose the 13-year-old boy narrating the programme was the son of a deputy minister and the Hamas terrorist-run government broke the rules, and that it was materially misleading not to mention it. There was an internal BBC investigation on this as well by one of their directors, Peter Johnson, and he found very similar things. The BBC has said, we have apologised for this and we accept Ofcom's decision in full. We will comply with the sanction as soon as the date and wording are finalised. For more on this, Akhil Ahmed is the former head of religion and ethics at the BBC. Akhil, was this just inevitable, do you think?
I think it was inevitable in this particular instance. I mean, I think when we first heard about the particular stories, you had to let the you knew there was going to be an investigation, which is why they couldn't really go into the detail of it too much, but it was pretty obvious what the result was going to be. I mean, what's happened is this has been made by an independent production company, and they did not make anybody aware that
the BBC is meant to have editorial control, and it did not exercise that editorial control correctly.
No, the point is they didn't make the BBC. I mean, you cannot know exactly every single thing.
But if you're the executive if you have executive producers, what's the point of them if they don't know exactly how it's working?
You have a commissioning executive, commissioning editor working across a number of programmes, not just this. And actually, that's why I believe the thing the BBC have done wrong in this sense is obviously they broadcast something, but the production company make it. But in terms of the BBC's role, what I was always told to do is that when you walk into the edit suite, or when we were looking at a film that was an edit, we'd always say, is there something we need to know? Is there something you should get off? You should explain to us now.
And it's not just that informal process. I mean, I've made films that have been broadcast on the BBC. I mean, there's compliance coming out of its eyeballs. There's so much compliance within the BBC. How was this missed?
Well, see, look, I'm going to be honest with you now, right? I think we've all made mistakes, right? I think this one's quite a basic one, in my opinion. It's
a pretty big basic mistake.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That should have been spotted. But the fact of the matter is, these mistakes get made. And why is it being made? It's being made because it's being made by an independent production company. Now, you could argue, do they have, and I know this is going to sound a bit weird when I say this, are there enough people with experience in kind of like those middle to senior management roles who spot things like this, who ask the right kind of questions?
Well, I agree with all of that, Akhil, but my problem is, if you're any kind of journalist, you will know about bias, objectivity, the fact that the BBC, paid for by the licence fee, is meant to be independent journalism, is meant to be totally unbiased. And I mean, this is a massive.
If it wasn't, I would be ashamed. Yeah.
This is a massive elephant in the room. The massive element in the room. The narrator is the son of a Hamas terrorist. Like that is so basic. That is so basic.
Well, I remember it's like how many. We could get into the angels dancing on heads of pins here, but a junior minister in the Hamas government, as opposed to a terrorist.
They're all designated as terrorists under UK law. They're all every single person in Hamas. Every single person in Hamas is designated as a terrorist under UK law.
Yeah, I just think I'd be careful about calling.
I will happily call him a terrorist, and if he wants to sue me, I will see him in court.
You can, and I have no problem with you doing that. It's difficult if I don't know if he's committed any particular kind of crime. But
Hamas have committed many crimes, and every single person who's a member of Hamas is a terrorist.
Peter, I made the film on Hamas. I got access to Hamas when they first became a government, if you want to call it that, and many years ago, when I was at Channel 4, before I even became the head of religion at the BBC. So I can tell you, I've got a pretty good idea about Hamas and how they operate.
Well, surely you would know they're all terrorists then.
Well, I don't want to get into this particular thing now, but I think that there are people who work in government, civil servant type people who work in government, and there are people who commit atrocities. Yeah, I mean, there are different kinds of people. But my point about this,
I don't think we're going to agree on that, Akil, but make your point.
You don't know point. I mean, whether I said to you, I accept your opinion on it. I'm not saying that I'm right or wrong. I'm saying that's where I come from.
Okay, well, I'm telling you you're wrong, but tell us your opinion on the other thing.
But my opinion on the other thing is this, which is, I agree with you. You know, I think if part of the problem, I think, Peter, is that if you don't have people who've worked in these particular places, who don't know what it's like to work with an organisation.
Well, why were they making the film in the first place then?
Well, the film's being made by an independent production company. I don't know who's working on it. I'm talking about in general. There's nothing that can happen in Gaza. I'll be honest with you now, it's very difficult to do anything in Gaza. Our own government involved, any charity who's doing really great work, wherever they come from in the world, it's very difficult in Gaza over the last 20 years to be able to do anything without being touched in some form or other by the hand of Hamas.
Well, this is why I totally accept that, and I agree with you, and I know that's the case. But then when BBC,
Peter, can I just go on to the point I was going to go on to make?
Go ahead.
So if you know that, then you must really nail the point of who this person is and what their relationship is with anybody. If you're going to have something narrated by a child, then you want to know everything you can about that particular child. And there is an issue about child safety, so effectively you've got to know who the parents are. So on every single level, I don't understand how this has happened. One, nothing goes on without Hamas being involved. Two, it's because it's a child, you've got to know who the parents or the guardians are to get their permission, etc.
Okay.
All of these things make it difficult for me to understand how it happens.
Just one final question on all of this. You have said on 2 occasions that Hamas always know what's going on, or at least generally have to be involved.
Well, I said that there's going to be an involvement.
Okay, there's going to be an involvement. So my question is, if I'm watching the BBC 10 o'clock news, as I do most nights, and they say, well, the BBC aren't allowed in, like international journalists aren't allowed into Gaza because the Israelis don't let them in. That's fair enough. I totally disagree with the Israelis on that. I think they're wrong. I've said that consistently for the last 2 or 3 years. My point is, in what way can we trust footage that comes out of Gaza? In what way can we trust when they say journalists have been killed by Israel? Are those people actually journalists, or are they Hamas terrorists, or are they somewhere in between? Because if you don't know and you haven't got that clarity, yet the BBC tells us time and time again, as do other organisations, that these people are journalists. They don't know that.
I think the vast majority are journalists, Peter, and I think we have to accept that a lot of people have been killed and a lot of people.
But how do we know? And if Hamas is overseeing this stuff,
if we go down that road, then we can never count for a single.
Put a proper health warning on it and say we don't know if this is Hamas propaganda.
If we want to go down that road, it's all propaganda, quite frankly.
It's not all propaganda. You have independent media organisations. You have independent media organisations going into war zones, getting information.
No, in Gaza right now, or not right now today, but in Gaza for the last 2 years, no one has been allowed to go in to Gaza unless they were directed and embedded with, but directed, because I know people who've done it, embedded with the Israeli Defense Forces. You weren't allowed to just wander around, and that was on a handful of times. And actually, then they stopped it because of what was
and I disagree with the Israelis on that. But I'm talking about the footage that is presented.
I am not going to call. I have trained people over the years, and I've talked to filmmakers in Gaza and the West Bank over the years in the work that I've done in the past. The fact of the matter is, we're not going to start going around calling people who have died doing their job terrorists.
They might be. They could be.
I'm a journalist, and I'm really sorry. I'm just not having that because
but it's possible. It's possible. But it's possible.
Say 300 people. 300 people, Peter. You're saying 300 of those people.
I haven't said that. I haven't said that. I'm saying you don't know, and you've got to be clear, and the BBC is not clear with us.
300 journalists.
I haven't said that. You're putting words in my mouth. I haven't said that.
But 300 journalists have been killed, and you're saying that some of them, or all of them, or majority of them, could be terrorists.
I didn't say a majority of them. I didn't say all of them. I said we don't know whether they're being directed by...
There's going to be some of them. I agree. There's going to be some of them, but out of the 300...
Well, then we needed greater health warnings. Look, Akil, I've got to move on. We could talk about this all day. Let's talk on a future occasion. I always like your contributions to this programme, even if I disagree with you. That's Akil Ahmed there, who is former head of religion and ethics at the BBC. The latest is that MPs on the Culture, Media and Sport Committee have demanded an explanation from West Midlands Police about its decision to ban Maccabi Tel Aviv fans from attending next month's match against Aston Villa. In a letter to Chief Constable Craig Guilford, committee chairwoman Dame Caroline Dinage said the decision undermines the principle that football or national game is for everyone. Well, it isn't, according to West Midlands Police. Lots more on this, including your thoughts, and we'll talk about China in just a second. Stay with us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to everybody who's been in touch. Just had a look at my tweets there. I'll read some of those out in a minute. But first of all, I want to speak to Chung Ching Kwong, who's a senior analyst at the Interparliamentary Alliance on China. Chung, thank you for joining me today. This is about the MI5 chief frustrated over the China spy case collapse. There's so much happening in this. It's moving all the time. Just before we speak to Chung, let's remind ourselves of what the head of MI5, Sir Ken McCallum, said about the China case yesterday.
Of course, our preference always is to effect the most enduring disruption we can. When prosecutions and convictions happen, that's great. So yes, we are frustrated when those things don't happen. Like, this is not unique. There are sometimes reasons why prosecutions don't work. But the key thing for us to do is to disrupt threats, and that's what we've done.
Chung, this is such an incredibly complex story, but someone's not telling the full truth. The CPS, the government, where do you think the truth lies in all of this?
This is a very difficult question to answer because I wish I knew the accurate and correct answer.
Don't we all? Don't we all? Yeah.
Yeah, and we deserve that. We deserve the transparency and the full truth. But I want to point out the government's line has never been consistent from day one of this story. Since the case has collapsed, every time a minister come into this dispatch box, they said something different. It seems like they're all looking for a scapegoat. So it's either the
Kemi Badenoch, sorry to interrupt you, but Kemi Badenoch pointed that out on Wednesday at Prime Minister's Questions. She said the day before, or 2 days previously, I think, Dan Jarvis, the Security Minister, on Monday answered a question and laid out some information, which Keir Starmer then contradicted on the Wednesday. It's all over the place here.
Yeah, it is. And it looks like that the government has been misleading the House, which is a very, very serious offence in this country. And they are not willing to actually offer any kind of clarity. Of course, they published a witness statement, but then it completely contradicts what they're saying. They're saying, oh, it's the previous Conservative government's fault. But if you look at the statement changed and then added in political lines directly copy and pasted from the Labour manifesto about China. So I have no idea why they would release some documents that would prove them inconsistent. So in my opinion, I'd say the government line is inconsistent and they stand a high chance of misleading the House.
What do you think should happen now? We've had a Labour MP, Dame Emily Thornberry, she is the chairwoman of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, saying that she does not know what the government's attitude to China is. A blind man on a galloping horse knows China is a threat.
China is definitely a threat for this country, not only to this country. In fact, there have been similar prosecutions happening in Australia and Germany, where people working for parliament have been accused of espionage on behalf of China. And right now, there is no clear China policy, as you said, coming from the Labour government. It seems like that they're trying to cash out while there's actually no more direct foreign investment from China since 2017. So the whole, let's get China bail us out of this economic difficult situation does not make sense as well. So it's very confusing on what the Labour government is trying to do, because if you are saying that you're doing it for economic benefits, there's actually not much benefit out of it. And we're at the same time sacrificing values like democracy, freedom, and also our national security. So it's actually very confusing to see this all happening right now.
Government is always a balance. I worked in government for 3.5 years, but actually national security has to be front and centre, doesn't it? We've got this application. It's now going to be postponed for a couple of months in regard to a Chinese super embassy. There's some rooms in the basement that they haven't made clear what they're for. I think we can all probably guess what they're for. I just wonder, Chung, whether you think that should go ahead, especially when there are very important cables underneath that embassy that deal with financial information coming from the City of London. How worried are you by the Chinese super embassy in London?
The mega embassy should definitely not go forward. It's not only that there have been sensitive cabling underneath the embassy itself, and China with a very strong track record of surveillance on other states. It's also because that it looks like, from what the foreign minister spokesperson of China said today, it seems like that the Labour government has given them false, unlawful reassurance about they're going to get the embassy, and that in fact is unlawful under a current UK planning law. So all of these adding together, I don't think the Labour government should or would like another major China scandal on this. And for national security, as you said, it definitely should be front and center of this country, because we all depend on it. We have to be safe in this country. We should have our privacy. We should know that we are free to speak up against China when we have to. And there's no point in having a country that kowtows to China when there's no national security or nothing to actually benefit from it.
Chung, thank you. Chung Ching Kwong there, Senior Analyst at the Interparliamentary Alliance on China. I appreciate your thoughts on that. Clearly a lot to talk about in this 0344 499 1000. On our main story in regard to that match in Birmingham, the Aston Villa match, lots of people getting in touch, including Ian in Solihull, says, why not send the army in to protect the Israeli fans if the police won't? 2 Villa friends of mine will be there applauding the Israeli team as well. Birmingham will miss out on a lot of money if the 2028 Euro matches are taken away from the city. Dan in Hartlepool, as a Villa fan, born and raised 20 minutes away from Aston and spending the best part of my life down Villa Park. The issue here is the fact that Aston and the surrounding areas are now segregated Islamic communities. Deborah in Essex, I'd be interested to know how many signed that petition. There were over 3 million signatures for a general election and it was ignored. Why? Because it was the British people who signed it. More double standards. Starmer needs to stand up or step down. Shocking. Bill in Romsey, reference to the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans. How low can this MP go? If Starmer does not stand up to this local MP, is complicit in the ban, therefore saying all football fans are racist. Great show as always. Thank you. Another person, Aston Villa versus Birmingham City is one of the most heated, violent derbies in the UK, and there's never been a problem in terms of banning people from it. Els Bells says, my blood pressure's through the roof. Where are the British-born Brummies? Are they all anti-Semitic? Of course not. I'd like to know, I'd like to hear off them. Come on, British Birmingham, what are you going to do about this? Perhaps a recall petition is in order now. By-election, get rid of this idiot, says Els Bells in Staffordshire. Tracy in Wakefield, 10 million to look after the Jews in Britain, 60 million to entertain failed asylum seekers. This is the real face of this government. Debbie says, so it's okay for thousands of undocumented immigrants to come over daily, but a few football supporters are dangerous. WTF. What will happen if Israel qualifies for the 2028 Euros set to be held in the UK and Ireland? Will they just ban all of them? Bob and Chiswick, if you agree with her or not, is my point. But when Maggie sent in the police in on the minors, she just sent them in, no ifs or buts. It's time the police went in hard on any group that turns to violence, not just stand by like they did the night the synagogue was attacked. Well, the police did turn up and they did, within 7 minutes, shoot and kill that scumbag terrorist who attacked the synagogue. It wasn't a perfect operation at all. They managed to kill an innocent bystander, but I do think the police did a good job there overall, which is a very difficult thing to say, and I don't mean to minimise in any way the death of that innocent bystander. It'll be very interesting to see what happens in the inquiry with all of that, but the terrorist was stopped from doing a lot worse things than he did, even though it was absolutely horrendous what was done. We're going to take your calls on this. If you want to get your voice on the air between now and 5 o'clock, or indeed now and 7 o'clock, give me a ring, 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
I'm not defending football hooliganism and disruption, tips into violence. That's a really bad thing, and that's happened, sadly, for decades, for hundreds of years around competitive sport in our country. But this is a much darker situation. What's really happened here is that West Midlands Police have listened to parts of the community in places like Aston and Handsworth and have come to the view that they cannot protect Jewish people on the streets of those neighbourhoods.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks to everyone who's been in touch, including Trevor in Harrow, who says it's becoming increasingly clear the government, civil servants and the police have taken a side. That side is not with the Jewish people. The left have become the thing they said they always hated. They're shouting at mirrors. Leslie says if these independent MPs, along with Corbyn, who has praised this ban, goodness knows where this country is going to end up. Stu on Twitter says, I'm appalled by the decision to ban a specific group of fans from watching this football game. I have no interest in football whatsoever. Frankly, I struggle to understand why they can't just all go and watch the game in peace. That aside, if the decision of the authorities is that they cannot guarantee the safety of those fans, then to me it's quite simple. Nobody watches it. Play it behind closed doors and televise it, says Stu. Another person says, have we heard from William, the patron of UK football and major Aston Villa fan, about this dreadful racist banning of Maccabi Tel Aviv fans? No, we have not, and believe me, we have asked Kensington Palace. Answer came there none. Glenn says Tottenham Hotspur is a predominantly Jewish club. They will have to play away to Aston Villa this season. In the Premier League, will their away fans also be banned from attending the game? Well, it's interesting actually, in Scotland, for about 3 years, Rangers and Celtic away fans weren't allowed to go to their respective grounds. That's now been lifted. So if Rangers and Celtic fans can get on well enough to be allowed to go there, well, why can't these Israeli fans go? Andy says there will be lots of these Tel Aviv fans that will already have flights booked. They will travel anyway. This ban makes things 100 times worse. And a very interesting one from this woman who says, very strange for once, the big gobs Gary Lineker and Gary Neville have nothing to say on this. Peter's in Preston has given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Peter, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Hi, Peter. Well, there were 2 points I wanted to make. The first is that, and now that Hamas are killing Palestinians on the street, what's going to happen to the marches over the weekend? Are we going to see the pro-Palestinian
And have we
marches?
seen condemnation of Hamas for doing that? No, we have not.
Are they going to be marching against Hamas this time?
I hope so. I mean, I doubt it very much.
And with the football, if the Birmingham police are not capable of keeping football fans safe, then they're not fit for purpose. And the club should have the guts to just take the game somewhere else and to say the game's going to go ahead and they'll move it to somewhere where the police can protect all the fans.
Very good point, and I think the club is slightly hiding behind the police on this. Peter in Preston, thank you. I want to play a couple of voice notes. Mickey has been in touch.
What I think should happen, since we've shown that we can't control the country and keep people safe, is that all British football teams should be kicked out of all European competitions. Maybe that will focus their minds and people might start standing up against this racism then.
I think that would focus quite a lot of minds. Debs has been in touch as well.
I think this is disgusting. This is really scary. I've watched Schindler's List, numerous films about the Second World War, and this is becoming frightening. I think this is disgusting. And I agree with you, Prince William, as you know, the head of the FA, chairman, I think you said he was, he should be saying something. Everybody should be entitled to go and watch their team peacefully and not feel threatened. But this is just disgusting.
Agree with every word. Just for clarity, Prince William is the president of the FA, but Debbie's points are absolutely correct. Dave's in London has given me a ring, 0344 499 1000. Dave, what would you like to say?
Yeah, hi Peter.
Hi there.
They're not going to overturn it. It'll just be more strong condemnation. So Villa needs to pay the price. They have to move the game so that the Villa fans can't see it.
Do you think the game should be played without fans, or just cancel the game entirely?
One or the other, but Villa fans have to take the hit.
Yeah.
So they have to take the full hit. So either it gets played behind closed doors, or preferably it gets played in a country like Cyprus, which is right near Israel. So they won't have far to travel. They could play at Abwell.
Isn't that just giving in, though?
Well, you're going to give in anyway because the government has already given in. So we've already given in. They're not going to reverse this. So we've now given in. So we now need sanctions on Villa, but they won't do that either.
In an ideal world, what would happen, Dave?
In an ideal world, the fans would be allowed to come. We'd put military out on the street with rubber bullets, and any messing at all, you take that people down hard. But we won't do that, as you know, because even if they put the police out there, they'll put half a dozen out there, and they'll soon be overwhelmed in 5 minutes. So our police aren't up to this. Like Peter Hitchens is often saying, you've got to recruit an entire new police force and sack the whole lot, but we can't do that right now.
What do you think this says, Dave, that we can't keep Israeli fans safe at a football match?
I think it says what it's been saying for about the last 5 to 10 to 15 years. The whole Islam type Islamist takeover is happening. It's been going on for 5, 10, probably longer, but it's now picking up pace because they're now getting into positions of power, and they're being voted in. So it's a democracy, right? Well, it's the same as the East London mosque thing, right? We've just had outrage that girls and women weren't allowed to do the park run, and now we're all condemning the mosque. No, it's illegal to be running in a public park. If they want to do that race, they can run around inside the mosque in private land, but you can't do it on public property. So it's the same thing. And there'll be 5 more next week, 5 more the week after, and we will capitulate, and we've got another 3 or 4 years of this. And if we don't vote to change in 3 or 4 years, I'm going to try and I'll take up Trump's offer and go to America if he'll have me.
Dave, thank you for your thoughts. That's Dave in London. Margaret said no fans should be allowed if you ban one side for political reasons. Mark says Tottenham Hotspur host Aston Villa for a Premiership match on Sunday. I think Spurs should ban all Villa supporters. And Stephanie says Muslims in Birmingham have no right to ban Jews who have been here for decades, respected our culture and contributed to our economy. Well, Stephanie, I'm sure there has been pressure from some Islamist Muslims, many of them maybe, certainly some of them signed a petition, but it's West Midlands Police that have made this decision based on the intelligence. What is the intelligence? Where is the threat coming from? Is it the fans, or is it people who would do harm to the fans? In which case, why can't you protect the fans and people from this country as well who just want to go and see a game of football? This is outrageous, and it shows where our country is right now in Britain in 2025. We're going to continue talking about this. I want your thoughts as well. Stay with us here on Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good evening. This is Talk Drive. I'm Peter Cardwell. Thank you so much for your company. The big topic today we're talking about is a story in Birmingham, but it's resonating right across the UK and beyond. Maccabi Tel Aviv is a football team that are coming to play Aston Villa. The team will come, but the fans are not welcome. That's what this country has said through West Midlands Police. They say it's too dangerous and the fans will not be allowed into the ground. Is this just capitulation to Islamists? I think it probably is. We've seen the local pro-Gaza MP and what he has said about it. He's delighted. What do you think? 0344 499 1000. And can we trust West Midlands Police or other forces across the country to actually keep Jewish people safe with rising anti-Semitism? Keir Starmer says action is needed, not words. Well, where's the action? He says he's trying to sort this out. It's 5 o'clock. He hasn't so far, and it's been around all day. We're going to look through all the political reaction. We're going to talk to an Aston Villa fan, Johnny Gould, great friend of this station, and Max Radford is coming as well. He's a Maccabi Tel Aviv fan. We'll get his thoughts on it. Trump is going to meet Putin in Budapest later this year. He's hosting Zelensky at the White House soon. We'll bring you live pictures from that as well. We will also talk about the sport this hour, and we'll take loads of your calls, text, tweets, voice notes, smoke signals, telepathic messages, carrier pigeons, however you want to communicate with this station. Let me know and we'll get you on the air between now and 7 o'clock. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. Remember, the main number does three things. You can send me a WhatsApp text message, you can send me a WhatsApp voice message, less than a minute please, or you can give me a ring, 0344 499 1000. Let's get started. Loads to talk about between now and 7 here on Talk Drive. Right, when you hear this nonsense, this is a Birmingham City Council spokesman. The Safety Advisory Group, or SAG, has made a decision based on a risk assessment provided by West Midlands Police. If there's a change in the assessment of risk in the forthcoming match between Aston Villa Football Club and Maccabi Tel Aviv, then the Safety Advisory Group will commit to review its decision as appropriate. All very official. Well, this is all after a petition calling for the ban of Maccabi Tel Aviv fans from next month's Europa League tie at Aston Villa in Birmingham because of safety. A club statement has confirmed Israeli away fans cannot attend Villa Park next month. This is the 6th of November. Here's the reaction from a jubilant independent MP, the pro-Gazan Ayub Khan.
Well, excellent news for the people of Birmingham and, most importantly, the residents here in Aston. I launched a petition to oppose the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans from coming to Birmingham and then into the Aston Villa Stadium. The surrounding ward of Aston is a ward that sits within my constituency. And I had many residents and businesses express concern of the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans from coming into our area. Clearly, we have all witnessed the scenes in Amsterdam, the violence that was displayed by the fans the night before the match. We all watched and listened to those vile chants of hatred and racism. And so there's no space for that kind of behaviour here in Birmingham. There's certainly no space for that kind of conduct in Aston. So I'm very pleased that both the West Midlands Police and Aston Villa Football Club have now written to UEFA informing them of their decision not to allow any fans from entering Birmingham and Aston.
Well, we know that what he hadn't mentioned there, what Ayub Khan failed to mention, was in Amsterdam a year ago, Maccabi supporters were attacked by anti-Semitic mobs after another Europa Cup match against Ajax. Yes, some of them said some vile things. Yes, some of them did some vile things. But many innocent people, including 7 people, were put in hospital, more than 20 injured, after pro-Palestinian crowds ran amok, targeted the visiting Israelis in the Dutch city. It broke out after chat room messages were exchanged calling for a Jew hunt. Is Ayub Khan worried about that? Is that context he should have added there? Well, he should have, of course, but he chose not to. Another person in his grouping in Parliament, this is a grouping which includes the former leader of the Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn, who arranged this petition to stop Maccabi Tel Aviv supporters coming to Aston Villa. That is what Jeremy Corbyn did. He denies he's an anti-Semite. Iqbal Mohammed, the independent MP for Dewsbury and Batley, said thank you all who put the safety of Aston Villa fans, Birmingham residents and the British public above the Zionist and political pressure to let Israeli hooligans and terrorists run riot in our country. These are members of Parliament. These are people who sit in the House of Commons, democratically elected. All of this, of course, led to an outcry right across the political spectrum, which said this decision is two-tier and should be reversed. Remember, it was only yesterday the Prime Minister promised to step up and fight anti-Semitism.
We have to step up in relation to defeating anti-Semitism. Action is what matters, and we're absolutely committed to that. The discussion we've had this morning was not about words. It was about what are the actions that are going to follow through from this. We're putting in an additional £10 million for the protection of the Jewish community. We want to work with you on that to really step up the work that the government is doing and to make sure that every single member of our Jewish community in this country feels safe, secure, and that this is where their home is. This is the country they are part of, and it's our job to make sure that that is absolutely reflected in a deep sense of security in this country.
A deep sense of security. I tell you something, if you're a Jewish person watching or listening to this programme and you feel a deep sense of security in this country, I'd love to hear from you. Do you believe Keir Starmer is protecting you? Do you believe the forces of law and order have you as the person they're protecting, the people they're protecting, a deep sense of security? Because a whole £10 million, that's basically nothing. That's like not even a hospital scanner, is being put into your security to add security. £10 million is nothing. So there's mounting pressure on the government to act to allow the Tel Aviv fans to continue their life as normal. This was the leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch. She was speaking earlier on this.
I think it is a national disgrace. This is something that the police should be able to deal with. We cannot be a country where we tell Jewish people that they can't come to watch football because their security is not going to be looked after. What I want to see is the police finding ways to make sure they can be secure and sending the message to the Islamists and those who are pushing anti-Jewish hatred that this does not happen in the UK.
We've been talking throughout the day on this story. The government says it's going to sort it out. It hasn't. 5:10. Day's getting later and later. Throughout the day we've had reaction. The former Defence Secretary Grant Shapps, he's Jewish. He said this to my colleague Alex Phillips earlier today.
What kind of message does this send out that you may not go to Birmingham as a Jew if you happen to support this football team? And what will it feel like for other Jews who want to go to that match? Perhaps wearing a Star of David or something else. I mean, really, is this what it's come to, that we can't manage to police a football match in order to allow both sides to attend? It is the wrong decision. It must be overturned. Otherwise, the message about what this country is, where it's headed, is in completely the wrong direction.
We'll go to fans of either of both teams in just a second. I just want to read out a couple of messages. Mira in Tel Aviv, thank you for getting in touch all the way from Israel, says, I agree with Chris earlier on, the Chris Phillips who we spoke to. Why has this decision been made? Who are the people that pose a security risk to Jews at a football match? Right-wing thugs? Keir Starmer needs to answer that question. Who are these people imposing Jew-free zones on the streets of Britain? Dawn in Chelmsford says the ban on the Jewish football supporters is a direct consequence of weak government. Starmer's concern is only about Muslim votes. Let's speak to two fans. Johnny Gould, a great friend of the station, great campaigner against anti-Semitism, great human being, is an Aston Villa fan. Max Radford, I don't know, but he is a Maccabi Tel Aviv fan, and Max is a friend of Johnny's, and basically any friend of Johnny's is a friend of mine. You're both very, very welcome to this programme. Max, maybe I can start with you as a fan of Maccabi Tel Aviv. Where do you see this? What are your thoughts on this? Because I think it's disgraceful.
Well, the first thing I'm going to say, this is just shows how far this country has fallen. This isn't the first time that Maccabi Tel Aviv have been to play here. As a fan, and I live in Britain, I always hoped that they would actually get my team, Tottenham Hotspur, but it never quite happened in the draw. And now we get Aston Villa, which is great because we have Johnny on the other side there. But it really shows how far it's fallen, because Maccabi Tel Aviv did actually play against Chelsea in 2015 in a Champions League, which I remember well and attended, and it was a sea of yellow. And in the 10 years since, we've reached a situation where Maccabi Tel Aviv can go and play in Riyadh or in Abu Dhabi, or dare I say even Doha, but they can't come and play in Birmingham and be safe.
I mean that is very striking, isn't it? It's really striking that they can go to Saudi Arabia and play as a team from Tel Aviv, and they cannot come to Birmingham because of safety issues, according to West Midlands Police.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that they actually have played in Saudi Arabia, but they would be safe if they did.
Sure.
And one of the things to remember is Maccabi Tel Aviv, which is the biggest and probably most famous football club in Israel. There's two interesting things to say about them. First of all, there is a reason the Maccabi Tel Aviv play actually in yellow. And that's from actually a player at the time in 1942, I believe his name was Joseph Mirimovich. He went to the club and said, I think we should change our kit to yellow in recognition of the yellow star that the Jews were wearing in Europe at the time. So 80 years on, this yellow symbol is still unable to enter the UK with safety and playing a game.
Speaks volumes.
May I just add to that Maccabi Tel Aviv is not just a football team, they also have a very, very successful basketball team, so successful they are in fact pretty much the Real Madrid of European basketball. They've won the champ, and they travel internationally all of the time. They play many, many games a year all over Europe, and their safety is fine. Yeah. So the fact that the UK can't administer a safety for fans is just symptomatic of where we are in the UK right now.
Let me ask Johnny about this from your perspective as an Aston Villa fan. How has your club dealt with this in regard to West Midlands Police and West Midlands? Just your thoughts on the handling of this, Johnny.
They're putting their hands up, or at least the fans think they're putting their hands up and saying it's not their fault, but they are culpable. And from what I understand, they're in breach of the Equalities Act of 2010, so they're going to have to be dug out by the people that made their decision on their behalf. It's absolutely clear that this Maccabi game should go ahead at Villa Park. There should be Maccabi fans in the stadium. And Peter, you've got me as a guest. I am the person who you can get. I've been an Aston Villa fan for 50 years. My grandfather, a Holocaust survivor, set up his shop in Aston on the Lichfield Road, next to Lovers Walk, next to Aston Station. Okay, so this is a third generation Aston Villa supporter. I want Villa to win because I'm a Brummie and I'm a Jewish guy. It's irrelevant what religion I am when I go to Villa Park and enjoy the game. And we've got more than half a chance of winning this whole tournament because Unai Emery has won the Europa League 4 times. So I don't recognise the Aston that Ayub Khan is talking about. It is the home of Tony Iommi. It's the home of Ozzy Osbourne, rest in peace. It's a place of great tradition. And Aston Villa are the members of the Football League that created the Football League. And if it wasn't weighed down with all this terrible identity politics, football would never have been created around the world, would never have been such a meritocratic idea for the rest of the world to enjoy. So I think this is a terrible, terrible day for football as well as politics.
Totally agree with you. Max, I just wonder, I mean, some of the campaigners against this will point to some of the bad behaviour of Maccabi fans. Basically every large club in the world has some hooligans. Do you think there's any justification for their worries here?
Absolutely not. And I have many people that I know and some good friends of mine that actually attended that game in Amsterdam. As it happens, I was due to and didn't, and somewhat relieved.
Yeah.
But there's scenes of what they told me that happened. They travelled with their kids. And the first thing they did is run to their hotel and lock their kids in the room and then go back to try and save their friends. And what happened in Amsterdam, there wasn't any hooliganism as such from the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans. Of course, football fans are boisterous, no more so than Tottenham fans or Aston Villa fans. But certainly nothing that prompted what happened. It was an ambush, and it was, designed as an ambush for many, many days in advance. So it wasn't a reaction. But actually, this here in Birmingham is also an ambush. I've seen the clips, and I'm sure you have, of the imam in Birmingham, saying that when Maccabi Tel Aviv come to Birmingham, they will show no mercy.
Yeah.
So, you know,
we're
sure
actually, sorry to interrupt you, Max, we're actually just going to play that clip now. This is an imam at a mosque in Birmingham talking about showing no mercy to Maccabi Tel Aviv fans. I think it's pretty close, or perhaps is incitement. Let's just take a look at this clip.
We safeguard the vulnerable from any type of exploitation. That is the character of a Muslim, who has a Muslim as a rahmah. This, remember, rahmah is in its place. It's in its place. When the Tel Aviv fans come to Birmingham in a few weeks, we will not show them rahmah in Birmingham.
Rahmah, of course, meaning mercy. That is Asrar Rashid, who is an imam there. Just finally, Johnny, what should happen now?
The powers that be who came out in such outrage, and instantly so, including here on Talk, I'm delighted to say, should come together and get the 1,000-odd or 2,000-odd Maccabi fans into the stadium and police it all the way from Birmingham Airport all the way through to the city centre and around Villa Park. Get them out of the stadium nice and safely into their hotels or onto the planes home. Thanks very much. We played Celtic last year in the Champions League. Celtic are rowdy. They bring Palestine flags to all and sundry of their games. No one seems to worry. Everyone went home or nobody died. You know, we've had 150 years of away support to get used to this. This is a nothing special game which Villa will win comfortably. It will be over as a contest, as a football match. There won't be much to be angry about. Let's get the boys in from Israel into the game, and I want to shake hands with them. I want to say welcome to Birmingham. I'm very, very sorry about the city being created, but I assure you I had a wonderful life growing up there, and it's nothing like it today. I'm very, very upset for my city. It's being projected in such a terrible way.
Max, I can't quite see the T-shirt you're wearing, but I think it might be Emily Demari's defiant, Emily Demari's defiant symbol of, certainly of defiance there. She is a Maccabi Tel Aviv fan and has been talking about this. This is someone who spent over a year as a hostage under Hamas terrorists who took her on the 7th of October. Thankfully now back basically safe and sound, and someone who is a huge Maccabi Tel Aviv fan. She's been talking today as well. Max, are you there?
Yeah, there's a question. I thought you were about to show.
Oh, sorry. No, we weren't showing clip. No, she has been
Yes.
saying today that she really wants to come and she wants to support that team. She's a British Israeli, of course. Even with her very, very strong words, I wonder if you think the message will get through.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that Emily said actually about this is it's like having a sign on the stadium saying no Jews.
Yeah.
And, you know, she put that out in a statement, which, I received as well. You know, I was fortunate enough to actually meet Emily and be with her at the Tottenham game that she came to. And now she has, Gali and Ziv Berman, her two very, very close friends, twins, also released, also huge Maccabi Tel Aviv fans, although I don't think they were quite in a condition to be able to come to that game. But it's devastating for the football fans on the one hand, and they absolutely want to travel playing against a Premier League team, but albeit Aston Villa are not one of the big boys. Sorry, Johnny. But the reality is it's absolutely devastating for the fans. But I do want to say that even if this game does go ahead, and with both sets of fans, and by the way, it should be one of two things. It's either both sets of fans or no fans behind closed doors. But even if it goes ahead in the way that we want, which is a celebration of football with two sets of fans coming together to compete with a safety for everyone, this problem doesn't go away.
Yeah.
Okay. This problem is systematic. It's been built over time. It's institutionalized. And it's gone so far, dare I say, that I am currently in the middle of an expose along with David Collier, a journalist,
great man,
exposing a journalist, an international broadcast journalist, who actually goes to Premier League games, covers Premier League games, and then puts on his keffiyeh and uses the backdrop of Premier League games and Europa League games and England games.
Listen, when you're
I just want to say that's going to be exposed But it's very important to say that even that, which has been with the Premier League and the FA for 2 months, have still not dealt with it. And this is the systematic failure that we have even at a government level.
Well, when you're a bit further down the road with that and you're ready to talk about it, come back to us, Max. I'd love to talk to you more about that. Max and Johnny, thank you both very much indeed. That's Johnny Gould and Max Radford, fans of Aston Villa and Maccabi Tel Aviv, respectively. I also want to read out the statement from Emily Damari, the former hostage. She has an incredibly defiant symbol. They cut off her fingers, and nonetheless she has this sort of defiant fist symbol, which has become a symbol of the hostages in as much, I would argue, as the yellow ribbon. She said, "I was released from Hamas captivity in January, and I'm a diehard fan of Maccabi Tel Aviv. I am shocked to my core with this outrageous decision to ban me, my family and my friends from attending an Aston Villa game in the UK. Football is a way of bringing people together, irrespective of their faith, colour or religion, and this disgusting decision does the exact opposite. Shame on you. I hope you come to your senses and reconsider. I do wonder what exactly has become of UK society. This is like putting a big sign on the outside of a stadium saying, 'No Jews allowed.' What has become of the UK where blatant anti-Semitism has become the norm? What a sad world we are living in," says Emily Damari. So many other people getting in touch about this as well. Stuart says these horrible racist imams in the UK would be arrested immediately, talking like that if they're in Morocco or any other civilised Arab country. But with Britain being run by woke left-wing liberals for years now, there's no control over these people whatsoever. Thank you also to Julie, who says, "What does this say to the rest of the world? It's disgusting, it's cowardice. Where is our leader?" Well, Keir Starmer says he'll take action. What action can he take? Should he take? You let me know. 0344 499 1000. We're going to talk about Donald Trump in a second. Zelensky is meeting him, we think, this hour at the White House, and he is due to meet Putin in Budapest for a second Ukraine summit. Simon Diggins, the defence and security analyst, will be with us in just a second. Let us know your thoughts on all of this. 0344 499 1000.
I'm not defending football hooliganism and disruption, tips into violence. That's a really bad thing, and that's happened, sadly, for decades, for hundreds of years around competitive sport in our country. But this is a much darker situation. What's really happened here is that West Midlands Police have listened to parts of the community in places like Aston and Handsworth and have come to the view that they cannot protect Jewish people on the streets of those neighbourhoods.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Right then, thank you to everybody who has been in touch. Just been having a look at some of the tweets there over the break there. And Paul says, Mahmood knew about the decision a week ago. This has actually been confirmed by the Daily Telegraph. The Home Secretary knew last week Israeli football fans could be banned from Villa Park. In fairness to the Home Secretary, things that could happen are told all the time, but the question is, did she then stand up and say this shouldn't happen and these people shouldn't be banned? So the Daily Telegraph reporting saying that she was informed about a possible ban at a meeting with police chiefs last week. She's a Birmingham MP, Birmingham Ladywood, was told the ban was among the options on the table. However, a source close to Ms Mahmood insisted she had been unaware of the final decision until Thursday night. And to a degree, Shabana Mahmood, I'm going to slightly defend her here, because politicians are told all the time, I know this from working in government, they're told this might happen, this might not happen. The question is, did she stand up and say this shouldn't happen, this would be a bad thing if it happens? And that's what we don't know. So Paul says she knew about the decision a week ago. Something so sensitive, Starmer will have been told, but they put Islamic terrorists first. Water cannons should be on the streets, any demonstration banned, and if any Muslims causing trouble, they should be using them. Gareth says perhaps Maccabi Tel Aviv should bring the IDF, the Israeli army, with them to police Aston Villa. I'm sure West Midlands Police and the local MP would be delighted with the support. Win-win. I think Gareth perhaps has his tongue in his cheek there. Jacqueline says, Peter, before, when there was football hooliganism, all they did was stop the fans that caused the trouble from ever going to a football match again. Why don't they do the same now? Then tell them if they're not born here, they will be deported. Lady Anne says, talking about what Chris Phillip said earlier on, we need Belfast tactics now, rubber bullets, riot shields and water cannon. This is out of control. Dallas Nash says, hi Peter, if the police can't guarantee the safety of Jewish fans, then clearly it's the other side who need to be banned. Surely they're troublemakers and thugs. This anti-Semitism needs knocked on the head before a new Holocaust starts up in Britain. Well, Simon Diggins is with us now. We're actually going to talk to him, and we invited him on to talk about Putin in Budapest and the Second Ukrainian Summit. I am going to ask you about that in a second, Simon, but I know you can certainly deal with this issue as well. I'm sure you're following the news. You're a news junkie like me. I mean, could hypothetically the army be sent in, should they be sent in, to keep the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans safe? How serious is this situation, do you think?
I think the situation is very serious, not least because the optics of it are poor in terms of all sorts of issues, race relations, immigration, and of course the horror of anti-Semitism, which we've seen recently in Manchester and which continues today. But the idea of using the military to secure and support the police is very complicated. It's called military aid to the civil power, MACP, and it can happen, and indeed, of course, did happen in places like Northern Ireland, but it was put in very, very general terms. It would only happen if basically the police themselves said they were unable to manage the unrest or the disorder that they were faced with. And given that what we're talking about in this particular instance is a very limited issue about a group of fans coming for a particular football match, I would be very surprised if the combination of West Midlands Police and other police forces couldn't deal with all the issues that they were due to face. And I think the army would only be called in then if they really couldn't deal with it. But that would be a very serious and very large step to use in that phase. So who am I? I have no crystal ball. I would say that would be an unlikely step, but there is, of course, a procedure and a process for bringing the military into aid the civil power if required.
That's really helpful and interesting. Thank you, Simon. We hadn't said we were going to ask you about that, but if anybody can deal with an ambush, it's Colonel Simon Diggins, let me tell you. Right then, let's talk about President Trump now. He's announced he's going to hold a second face-to-face meeting with President Putin, this time in Budapest, to see if we can bring an end to this inglorious war between Russia and Ukraine. In the next few minutes, we expect to see footage from the White House where Zelensky is coming there, where they had a lengthy phone call, and Trump has said, the lengthy phone call before meeting Zelensky, Trump and Putin spoke, and they're going to reconvene the high-level talks. I mean, the fact they're talking, I suppose, is a good thing, but we've seen what Trump sees anyway as a betrayal since the Alaska meeting a few months ago.
No, I think so. I think it's quite interesting. The last couple of weeks, more information came out about what actually happened at that Alaska meeting. President Trump, laid on the whole thing, the whole red carpet and everything, trying to welcome President Putin there. But the meeting nearly ended in a complete fiasco. That wasn't necessarily evident at the time. What happened? Putin gave President Trump a very long lecture on history, but effectively said that all of Ukraine belongs to Russia, which of course is not something that the President Trump was prepared to kind of listen to. And the sort of celebratory lunch that was supposed to have was actually cancelled. So we didn't really get the full impression from it. So clear frustration, and we heard the frustration expressed by President Trump afterwards about what happened at that meeting. He was very, very vulgar about what he thought that President Putin had done to him from there. But we are in a bit of a roll at the moment. I mean, I think fresh back from his triumph in the Middle East, President Trump's determined to try and bring this particular war to an end. He described it today as an inglorious war between Russia and Ukraine. But some of the situation on the ground has also started to change. It's quite clear that Ukraine's attacks on Russia's infrastructure, particularly its oil infrastructure, is starting to have an effect. Slow, certainly, not necessarily going to cause an immediate effect, but the Russians are starting to worry now about their ability to get oil out through third parties or direct to China, and therefore keep their war economy going. So that's starting to happen. And the second thing is there's a very clear call by President Zelensky for Tomahawk missiles. Earlier on this year, he talked when he talked to the Chancellor, German Chancellor Merz, and to Sir Keir Starmer. He talked about wanting what he called a sub-nuclear strategic deterrent for Putin. And he talked then in terms of missiles. He talked about the German Taurus missile. The Tomahawk wasn't even on the table at the time, but a missile that's capable of striking Moscow and St. Petersburg. And that's what he's asking for at the moment. And I think that's also having an effect on President Putin. He's thinking, do I really want to have Moscow bombarded by Tomahawk missiles fired from Ukraine? So I think all of these things are kind of bringing it together, and to some extent at least, focusing President Putin's mind.
Just on the Tomahawk matter that you bring up there, what do you think Trump's likely to do?
I think he's probably going to say no initially, but he'll keep talking. And in the past, that was very frustrating, particularly for the Ukrainians when they asked things from President Biden. And indeed, the comments been put out several times about describing the sort of US aid to Ukraine, as $1 too little, 1 day too late. And the same might apply with the Tomahawk. The Tomahawk is a very capable missile. And if Putin shows no sign of movement after the meeting, which we presume will take place in Hungary, then I think that's the point where President Trump will say, well, in that case, you can now have them.
Simon, as always, thank you. That's Colonel Simon Diggins there, former senior officer, of course, in the UK Army and a defence and security analyst. Thank you to him. Lots more to discuss. We'll get the sport later this hour as well, but loads of people have been in touch wanting to talk about the football match. We will, of course, bring you all of a range of opinions. We'll get those people on the line, and if you want to add your voice to the debate between now and 7 o'clock, 0344 499 1000. Just want to read out a couple of messages before we go to the break. Jane says, I fear everyone has dug a further hole and won't be able to get out of it. The damage has been done. The Prime Minister needs to resign. Parliament needs to reset with new people. Westminster Police, another person says, have always used weak excuses to ban football fans with racist views. They once banned Welsh Cardiff City fans from attending a game against Wolves. Now the Tel Aviv fans should beat the West Midlands Police like they did by hiring airships. Okay, not sure about that. Vince says, I'm absolutely not implying that Tel Aviv fans are in any way racist. Stuart says, I would be willing to bet that there are a lot of Islamic police chiefs in the West Midlands Police Force and lots of woke left-wing Palestinian supporters on the Police Oversight Council, the committee, the thing that they have these days. Taff in Dover says it's disgusting what these anti-Semitic MPs are saying. Have they broken the code of conduct for MPs, as the code says they shouldn't do anything that would cause significant damage to the reputation reputation and integrity of the House. I think they've brought shame on Parliament. I mean, part of me, in my mind, the Ofcom bit of my brain, says that I should say that these people, that these MPs, Ayub Khan and Jeremy Corbyn and so on, would deny being anti-Semitic. I mean, they would deny that, but do we believe them, is the question. Let me know your thoughts on all of this. 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Let's hear a voice note from Trevor.
I'm sorry to say this, but we are where we are, and that's the state that the police is in, that's the state that the country is in. It should never have happened, and we need to get out of it. But with the current state, if they can't protect them, they can't. I think that the only thing to do is to say, we're not going to be racist about this. The match will be played behind closed doors. Villa fans won't go either.
Trevor, thanks for your thoughts on that. Philip's been in touch on Twitter and says, afternoon, Peter. Presumably Aston Villa fans will be banned from the return leg in Israel on the grounds that, again, the Israeli fans would not be safe. Roger says, our ancestors beat Hitler. Have we lost it? Another person says, they blew up kids at an Ariana Grande concert. They blew up people going to work on buses in England. They murdered Lee Rigby. They stabbed people on London Bridge, murdered 2 unharmed in Manchester. However, we keep rewarding Islamists with more and more appeasement. Well, thank you very much indeed for that. Vince has been in touch and says if they cannot play the football match, then Villa should be kicked out of the competition and banned from European football for life. The people who are trying to stop the match should all be arrested and charged and sentenced to prison. These people don't stand with the British people. The police service are unfit to serve the people and all should be sacked. Let's go to Dan in Warrington, who's given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Dan, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
You're okay. I actually don't think we should be spending money protecting the Jewish community, because why should we? This is broken windows there, isn't it? We've let, like the Batley school teacher that's in hiding and other things that have gone on for 20 years. We're not dealing with the problem. Why should we have to spend money protecting one bit of our communities? We shouldn't have to, Peter.
I know what you mean, Dan, and listen, I support the money being spent because I do want synagogues, schools, community centres to be safe, But you're absolutely right. Until you sort the source of the problem, it's like there's so many aspects of our society. I actually saw a brilliant tweet yesterday, Dan, that I'm going to try and find now, actually, which was just so much about how we deal with the symptom, we deal with the effects rather than the symptoms of the problem. The person who was, I'm just trying to find it on my Twitter timeline now, and it was all about how, you know, we don't stop shoplifting, we put tags on food. We don't stop the source of the problem here. We deal with putting more security on Jewish community centres. It is, here we are, I found it. We can't control criminals, so we punish ordinary people to mitigate. Violent anti-Semitic Muslims ban the Jews to avoid clashes. Thieves put safety tags on all produce. Murderers put age checks on Amazon-bought knives. Britain doesn't have law and order anymore. It has capitulated to the criminals and punishes the innocent. That is Christian Calgie from the Daily Express. It's hard to disagree with that, Dan.
Yeah, and that's exactly my point, right? So we wouldn't be saying to females that they shouldn't be walking around, you know, with a short skirt on or something like that, just in case they get attacked or raped, because that's nonsense. We shouldn't be. Victims are victims, and we should be dealing properly with the perpetrators and allowing certain aspects, whether it's criminality or whatever it is, and like you say, like you just mentioned, them tags on food. Why should we have to go into a shop because a shoplifter's stealing stuff and things are tagged? And,
because the authorities and society will not deal with the source of the problem.
Yeah, because we've completely broken down, and when we allow, for example, this mosque that doesn't allow young girls to join a fun run when they reach a certain age. These things are not integrating into our society. They're not. So when the left-wing establishment has been saying over the past 20 years, oh yeah, they're integrating, they're good for the good, it's multicultural and all, it's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. If you want people to integrate into your society, you have to actually, obey the sort. Everybody's different in this country. I get that, but there is certain principles.
You're totally right, Dan. There are British values, and I would love to ask those people on that fun run who actually participated, knowing that this was the case. Why did you do that? Why did you decide that no girl over 12 should take part in this? Do you think that's perfectly fine? Do you think it's absolutely fine? And also, the people who are capitulating to this and are, this was in Victoria Park in East London, which is a pretty left-wing area of London, even for London. What about the people who saw that? What about the people who witnessed that? What about the people who allowed that to happen? Are you okay with that? Are you okay with women who fought for rights for a very, very long time? Women's rights are something that I feel very strongly about. I'd probably call myself a feminist. What does that say? What does that say for our values? And shouldn't we just combat those things, which are serious, but not as serious as the Villa Park thing, for example? It is very serious and shouldn't have happened, absolutely. But if we allow it to drip, drip, drip down, I worry about that.
Exactly, but when you deal with it, when you deal with the smaller issues, right, then it protects the big issues like this. Right, so for example, the Batley school teacher, he got suspended, didn't he? And then he's gone into hiding. Why has nobody been arrested and things like that? For that, that's it.
You're making total sense, Dan.
We should not have put up with that. We should have said this is out of order. If we want to draw the Prophet Muhammad in a funny way, why not? If we wanted to burn a Quran or the Bible, yeah, okay, I wouldn't go out and do it.
No, I wouldn't do any of those three things you've just mentioned. None of those things would be something I'd do, but freedom exists or it doesn't.
You shouldn't fear for your life if you do that. And
correct.
That's the point. And so we need to deal with the things right at the bottom and punish the things right at the bottom in order, if we had done 10 and 20 years ago, then we wouldn't have this issue now at Villa Park.
Dan, you making total sense. Thank you for your call. That was Dan in Warrington. Herbie's in Harrow and has also given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Herbie, go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon, Peter.
Hi there.
Well, I mean to say this MP and I'm afraid the council and the police have segregated communities now, once and for all. It's just telling you exactly how they see life now. We're going to have segregation, we're going to have problems. We don't agree with unity anymore by the sounds of it. United we stand, divided we fall. It's exactly what is happening. We're getting divisions all around us, Peter.
It's really worrying. It's really difficult, but I just wonder, as Stan was saying there, I wonder if we're just dealing with we're just having these quick fixes that are not fair to anybody by saying that those fans can't go because of the level of threat.
Well, the problem is Peter, look, the minority seems to be winning the day, where the majority seems to be ignored completely and said, no, you're racist, you're this, that, and the other. This is not unity any longer. As I say, it's division. And as for an MP to turn around and say what he said, he's going to create problems. We do not need this type of...
Well, you're absolutely right, Herbie, and the problem is that they thrive on that division. They thrive on that sectarian politics. And I would argue that is why those MPs were elected. I would strongly argue that. Now, they may deny that, they may say that's nothing to do with it, they just say they're representing their communities, but sectarian politics should have no place in the UK, anywhere, and I include Northern Ireland, where I'm from. Thank you to Dave from Aldridge, who says, a simple solution, no Maccabi fans, no Villa fans, play the match behind closed doors. Richard in Costa del Sol, why don't they play with no fans in the stadium to even things out? Another person says, it would be great if Aston Villa fans organised the safe passage from the airport, train or bus station to the ground and back. It's not the genuine football fans that are threatening to harm the visitors. Yeah, I mean, that's Leslie in Preston there. She says, I don't really follow football, but I think there's still a lot of decent people in our cities. You're absolutely right, Leslie. Steve from Leamington Spa says, an apology representing the whole of the BBC corporation is going to be made, and some might say a lesser watched BBC channel. Why is this? I wonder. That's BBC Two after that Gaza documentary. The BBC, the government and some news outlets seem to be anti-Semitic, says another person. I don't blame Jewish people talking about moving to Israel. Steve in East Yorkshire, just before the break, says trying to justify the airing of the BBC Gaza documentary as a mistake is ridiculous if the necessary checks were not carried out before screening. That points to carelessness and ineptitude. I suspect they knew what they were doing and were more than happy to screen a Hamas propaganda video. Unfortunately, they were then found out. The Home Secretary on Twitter in the last few minutes said anti-Semitism is a stain in our society that shames us all. Every football fan, whoever they are, should be able to watch their team in safety. This government is doing everything in our power to ensure all fans can safely attend the game. Well, what does that actually mean? Will they be able to attend the game? Will Maccabi Tel Aviv fans actually get to go there? Answers are still not being provided, but that is the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood. In the last few minutes, anti-Semitism is a stain in our society that shames us all. Every football fan, whoever they are, should be able to watch their team in safety. This government is doing everything in our power to ensure all fans can safely attend the game. If there's any development on that between now and 7, we will of course bring it to you. We will have the sport next, and Dean Scoggins is going to join us. The Deputy Head of Sport will be in the studio. We'll take more of your thoughts on all of this. Get in touch, 0344 499 1000.
I'm not defending football hooliganism and disruption, tips into violence. That's a really bad thing, and that's happened, sadly, for decades, for hundreds of years around competitive sport in our country. But this is a much darker situation. What's really happened here is that West Midlands Police have listened to parts of the community in places like Aston and Handsworth and have come to the view that they cannot protect Jewish people on the streets of those neighbourhoods.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks to everybody who has been in touch, including this texter who says we mustn't stop Jewish fans coming to our country. To do so is to treat the symptom of a far bigger problem that we cannot ignore. We are governed by a weak man. What would Thatcher have done? Rob in Cheshire, when are we going to have a government with a backbone to stand up to the Islamification of our country? What happened today shames all Englishmen, says Rob in Cheshire, and English women as well, and the rest of us who aren't from England too, but are part of the wider UK. Sean in Bridlington says Israel played Italy in Udine on Tuesday. Italian police had snipers on the roof to protect them. We should do the same. If Islamists launch terrorist attacks on them in Birmingham, lethal force should be used. Well, we're going to leave this story for a second, turn to the wider sport. Dean Scoggins is with us.
Sports news from The Sun.
Dean is the Deputy Head of Sport at The Sun. Great to have you in the studio. How are you doing?
Thank you. Yeah, all good. You?
Yeah, very well. Thanks. Tell us about the Premier League. Back tomorrow, and under pressure, Nottingham Forest boss Ange Postecoglou had a bit of a rant. What's he been saying?
He did, and thank goodness the Premier League's back. I mean, it's called the international break for a reason, but as journalists, we much prefer the Premier League with no international break. But yeah, Big Ange. I'm a big fan of Big Ange, as I was there in Bilbao as a Tottenham fan as he lifted the Europa League trophy earlier this year. But winless in 7 games. How do I describe the Nottingham Forest owner, Evangelos Marinakis? Maybe combustible is probably the best word to describe him. So all the talk over the international break has been whether Ange Postecoglou will still be in the job as we come back. They played Chelsea at the weekend, and today he basically accused the journalists of smirking at him during the press conference.
Oh dear.
And then went on a 5-minute monologue to underline all his achievements at Tottenham, and basically he always wins a trophy in his second year, which he'd said at Tottenham last year, and then he duly did. So he's lit the fire again, and Chelsea's the lunchtime kickoff, so it starts off the Prem weekend with a big bang.
Certainly, and you talked about Chelsea there. They've had an injury blow. Star player Cole Palmer out injured. How long's he out for in the update?
Yeah, 6 weeks. So Enzo Maresca, before the international break, said that he hopes that Palmer will be back for this week, but he admitted he got it wrong. The groin injury, which it is a lot worse. So this has ramifications not only for Chelsea but for England as well, because the next international break is in November, so this would most likely rule him out for that as well. But yeah, Chelsea had a great result against Liverpool before the break, but Cole Palmer is their superstar. So just as Chelsea look like they're getting back towards sort of top 4 challenging, and this is a major blow for him. And look, 6 weeks before he goes into full training again, so probably another 8 weeks before they see him on the field.
We talked about Big Ange, but another manager under pressure is Ruben Amorim at Manchester United. The flagship game of the weekend is on Sunday. They face Liverpool. Can he get a win, do you think?
Ooh, I don't know about that. I think so. He obviously got the backing of Sir Jim Ratcliffe over the last couple of weeks, and everyone kind of feels a little bit like, well, backing for what? You know, he's been given a 3-year contract. They said it's a 3-year plan, but 10 wins in 34 Premier League games is just not enough. And to be fair to Amorim today, he's basically said, that's all talk. Unless I get results, then that's the proof is in the pudding. But you're right, that is the game of the weekend. Obviously, Liverpool lost just before the break as well, so they're a bit under pressure as well. But Anfield is not the trip that a Man United manager wants to make at the moment.
I'm sure it isn't, not at this stage anyway. Finally, your latest episode of the Tactics Show is on the big game of the weekend, Liverpool versus Man United. Let's take a look at this clip from the show now.
please play Amad Diallo as the right wing back. I know it's a bit controversial for some, but I just think that if you play Amad Diallo there, you get the ability to swing the game, okay? So I've got them set up there in sort of a 5-2-3, right? Because what teams will do is they'll try and pin the wing backs back, right? And if you've pinned the wing backs back and you've got 2 up here, there's 3 back, then the other team have got the overload. Like we talked about with Liverpool going the other way. That's how teams are overloading Man United. They're pinning the wing backs. If you play Amad Diallo here with a much better tendency to go forward, okay? So let's say the ball swings over to this side of the field, he's going to drop into a 5. That's okay. The ball gets played back along the back 4 here. This is the thing. So then Amad Diallo presses on there. Maybe Lenny Yoro goes across. The 2 centre-backs go across, and then they've got into a 4-4-2. That's how it should work, and that's how Palace are doing it. And then, of course, you win the ball back in this area, and you've got Amad Diallo and Brian Mbeumo running that way, okay? So that's how Palace do it, and that's how they get Tyrick Mitchell away. That's how they get Ismail Assar away, and that's where Glasner ball looks a lot better than Amorim ball at the moment.
There we are, the Tactics Show. How can people watch the full show, Dean?
It's on the Sunsport YouTube channel. I could tell you were well into that, Peter, wouldn't you? I know I'm a tactics nerd, probably not quite as much up your
Political
street.
tactics are more my cup of tea, but listen now, great stuff, great to see you. Thanks very much. That's Dean Scoggins there, Deputy Head of Sport at The Sun. Some breaking news: the government has said it's exploring what additional resources and support are required so all fans can attend Aston Villa's match against Maccabi Tel Aviv in Birmingham in November. Thus, a spokesman has said in the last few minutes that the government is exploring what additional resources and support are required so all fans can attend Aston Villa's match against Maccabi Tel Aviv in Birmingham in November, says a spokesman. If the government pull this off, if they put the tactics in, I will say well done, Keir Starmer. That is not something I usually say because there's very little to say it about. But if they pull this off, if people are kept safe, if the match goes ahead and fans from both sides are able to go, well then that is good. I hope this goes ahead. I hope the determination, the action that Keir Starmer talks about actually happens. We'll keep a very close eye on it, and if there are any other developments between now and 7 o'clock, of course, we will bring them to you. I want your reaction to all of this, including what the government's just said. 0344 499 1000.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, it's just gone 6 o'clock. This is Talk. I'm Peter Cardwell. Thank you for your company here on Talk Drive. Within the last few minutes, the government has said it is exploring what additional resources and support are required so all fans can attend Aston Villa's match against Maccabi Tel Aviv in Birmingham on the 6th of November. That's what a spokesman for the government has said. We're going to speak to a Conservative MP, Saqib Bhatti, in just a second. We'll see what he has to say about all of this. It is the big controversy that is exercising you today. We will take as many calls, texts, tweets and voice notes between now and 7 o'clock. I'll continue to discuss it on my programmes over the weekend. I'm on between 10 and 1 tomorrow and Sunday. Loads to discuss. If you want to get on before 7 o'clock, give me a ring, 0344 499 1000. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You could tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. Send me a voice note, send me a WhatsApp text message, or give me a ring, all on the main number 0344 499 1000. Lots to discuss, including Zelensky's visit to the White House. We're expecting him any minute. We'll bring you live pictures of that. Lots more to discuss about what's in the sun as well. Stay with us here on Talk. And as I said, Saqib Bhatti will join us in a second, the Conservative MP for Meriden and Solihull East. Also Lord Pickles, Eric Pickles, the former Special Envoy to the post-Holocaust issues. He'll be on this hour. This has all come up because after a petition calling for the ban of Maccabi Tel Aviv fans from next month's Europa League tie at Aston Villa because of safety. Question is, what is that safety? Where is the threat actually coming from? Is it from the fans? Is it from those who would attack the fans? We don't know that. A club statement from Aston Villa confirmed Israeli away fans cannot attend Villa Park. Here's the reaction, jubilant reaction, from the local independent MP, the pro-Gazan MP Ayub Khan.
Well, excellent news for the people of Birmingham and, most importantly, the residents here in Aston. I launched a petition to oppose the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans from coming to Birmingham and then into the Aston Villa Stadium. The surrounding ward of Aston is a ward that sits within my constituency, and I had many residents and businesses express concern of the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans from coming into our area. Clearly, we have all witnessed the scenes in Amsterdam, the violence that was displayed by the fans the night before the match. We all watched and listened to those vile chants of hatred and racism, and so there's no space for that kind of behaviour here in Birmingham. There's certainly no space for that kind of conduct in Aston. So I'm very pleased that both the West Midlands Police and Aston Villa Football Club have now written to UEFA informing them of their decision not to allow any fans from entering Birmingham and Aston.
Well, we actually asked Ayub Khan on today, and I have a number of questions I would have liked to have asked him. What he didn't have room in that message to talk about was a year ago in Amsterdam, those Maccabi Tel Aviv supporters attacked by anti-Semitic mobs. Does he condemn that? Should he have mentioned that? I think he probably should have. That was after another Europa Cup match against Ajax. 7 people hospitalised, more than 20 injured after pro-Palestinian crowds ran amok, targeted visiting Israelis, and chat room messages exchanged about calling for a Jew hunt. How worried is he that that could happen in Birmingham? Is that actually where his safety fears are? Many questions unanswered by him. Another MP, part of his grouping, there's a grouping of 5 MPs, including Jeremy Corbyn, who also put this petition forward, former leader of the Labour Party, now an independent MP. Another member of that, Iqbal Mohammed, the independent MP for Dewsbury and Batley. He said, "Thank you all who put the safety of Aston Villa fans, Birmingham residents and the British public above the Zionist and political pressure to let Israeli hooligans and terrorists run riot in our country." Is he honestly saying that every, I don't know if he is or not, maybe he would deny this, but is he saying that all Maccabi Tel Aviv fans are hooligans and terrorists? Very interesting thoughts from Ian Aitchison as well, who is a commentator who contributes to these programmes sometimes. He says the proportionality of banning a visiting football team's entire travelling fan base with no discrimination between those who simply want to watch their team and those who could be banned anyway if connected to trouble will be interesting to see, well, the government, as we say, exploring additional resources and support required to all fans can attend. The outcry that has happened all day across the political spectrum, and yesterday as well, which said this decision is two-tier and should be reversed. I'm part of that outcry. That is exactly what I think. Just yesterday, the Prime Minister promised to step up the fight against anti-Semitism. The government now saying it's exploring what additional resources and support are required so all fans can attend Aston Villa's match. This is what the Prime Minister said yesterday.
We have to step up in relation to defeating anti-Semitism. Action is what matters, and we're absolutely committed to that. The discussion we've had this morning was not about words. It was about what are the actions that are going to follow through from this. We're putting in an additional £10 million for the protection of the Jewish community. We want to work with you on that to really step up the work that the government is doing and to make sure that every single member of our Jewish community in this country feels safe, secure, and that this is where their home is. This is the country they are part of, and it's our job to make sure that that is absolutely reflected in a deep sense of security in this country.
I asked an hour ago for any Jewish person watching or listening who felt that they had a deep sense of security in this country, who felt protected, who didn't feel at risk, to contact me. I don't think a single one did, and I mean there are many people contacting this programme. I would love to talk to a Jewish person who feels a deep sense of security and ask them why, because every single Jewish person I speak to says they do not feel safe in this country at the moment. There are so many different aspects to this. Mark in Selby says, has Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, made a comment on the fiasco, or is she torn between her duty as Home Secretary and her faith and need for votes? If Islamists now dictate who goes where and when, what if they object to Remembrance Sunday? Kieran and Labour have to choose a side and stand by it. Well, in fairness to Shabana Mahmood, she has said in the last few minutes, anti-Semitism is a stain in our society that shames us all. Every football fan, whoever they are, should be able to watch their team in safety. This government is doing everything in our power to ensure all fans can safely attend the game. There is mounting pressure on this government. Some of it's coming from you, some of it's coming from me in this station. There's mounting pressure to act, to allow the Tel Aviv fans to continue their life as normal, to come to watch the football match that they want to watch. The leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch, spoke earlier on this too.
I think it is a national disgrace. This is something that the police should be able to deal with. We cannot be a country where we tell Jewish people that they can't come to watch football because their security is not going to be looked after. What I want to see is the police finding ways to make sure they can be secure and sending the message to the Islamists and those who are pushing anti-Jewish hatred that this does not happen in the UK.
Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the Conservative Party. Her party colleague is Saqib Bhatti, MP. Saqib, thank you for joining me this evening. What on earth do you make of all of this?
Look, thanks for having me. You know, listening to you just before I came on, I'm emotional. You know, I'm angry about this. I think this was completely the wrong decision. Yesterday, almost out of anger and emotion, I tweeted about how wrong this was. You know, I used to be president of the Greater Birmingham Chambers of Commerce before I got elected. This is not Birmingham. This is not the West Midlands. And those independent MPs have really let our community down here and also Britain down. This is
but it's West Midlands Police as well. I mean, it is Birmingham in the sense that the police force that polices Birmingham has said this isn't safe.
Well, look, they've made a mistake, but the reason I pick on the independent MPs is because they, through their own words, talk about that petition, by the way, which as time has gone on since yesterday, since the story came on, the mask has slipped, that it hasn't really been about safety. It's been about what's going on in the Middle East, what's going on in terms of what people are feeling around the Jewish community. And my worry is for those British Jews who, I mean, you talked about them not coming on here. I have spoken to some today, and I've been speaking to them over the last few weeks, before and after the Manchester attack, you know, which was a huge tragedy. And by the way, I've had huge amounts of British Muslims as well contact me today because they did not want this thrust upon them, right? This was not what they stand for. They want to live their lives in a free and liberal Britain.
And we hear that, Saqib, and we hear that from Jewish people as well, some of who have contacted this programme today, to say they're worried. They're worried about what is happening and a government that is not protecting them. And I do worry about their demonisation, and I worry as well about the demonisation of all Muslims as a result of this. There are many Muslims who play a very important role in our society, who are totally peaceful and would disassociate themselves even from the words of those MPs?
Say this first of all, because I was listening to you before. Thank you for what you've done and what your viewers have said as well on this, and the pressure is really important. But I say this, and I stood up because I believe in a better Britain. And we have to stand up and say something. We cannot let these kind of things lie, because they only escalate, they only get worse, and they can lead to tragedy, as we saw in Manchester. And I say to British Muslims, and I've said this plenty of times in the past, don't be afraid to speak up, because this is not what we believe, right?
I think they are afraid to speak up, because I know moderate Muslims in my life, friends of mine, who know that if you stand up, if you say things, if you say Islamism, for example, as opposed to Islam, if you say Islamism is wrong, if you say Islamist sentiment is wrong, you're going to be targeted. You're going to be, I don't mean necessarily in terms of threat to life, but certainly in terms of the kind of abuse that many people get. And what we really need more and more and more, and you're part of this, Saqib, is moderate Muslims to stand up and say, actually, we do believe in British values and things like this are wrong.
And look, I'm sad to say, you talked about threats to life. That's also, for people in the public eye, that has become a reality. I've had to experience it for the very same reasons. But the truth is, I know what is important to me. And, having the people, look, if people feel strongly about Gaza or Israel, whatever your cause is, this country allows you to protest. And as long as you do it within the law and you do it peacefully, good luck to you. And you do that. And people will object to you. And that is what makes this country absolutely great. But that's why I stand up and I say what happened yesterday was wrong. And you talked about the Westminster police. I work with them. They cover my area. They're very good people, but they made a wrong decision on this. And the implication is exactly that. Not only will British Jews feel unsafe, but those who want to speak up will also feel unsafe. And that's why we cannot let this lie. This has to be more than words from Keir Starmer. It looks like they're working towards a resolution and getting more police on the streets. Why didn't that happen before? Why didn't they have buses to protect those fans to come and see that match? Because not all of them will have been those that they were worried about. There will be families and children. If there were fans who they were worried about from a law and order point of view, arrest them, stop them from travelling. But we cannot, you one whole set of fans and stop them from coming to view this because, they're Israeli, because they can't be protected. I mean, it's a terrible message to send. And look, Peter, I'm going to say this. This is not Birmingham. This is not the West Midlands. This is not who we are. And this is why I'm standing up and saying this is not okay.
It's interesting from the government, it says it's exploring what additional resources and support are required so all fans can attend. How important do you think it is to send the message that actually this football match is going to go ahead? How important is it that it goes ahead? Obviously we want it to be peaceful, but actually the process of the match going ahead and the fans attending, what does that say about where we are as a country? Because there are things like this that I think people often feel are kind of really important moments when we see that fulcrum, we see that balance between what we want our country to be and what many people believe it is sliding towards.
Worst thing we could do is not allow that football match to go ahead. But of course, it's not lost on me that it's not without risk now, because it's drawn huge amounts of attention. There will be elements who will want to take advantage of it, cause trouble, whatever you want to say. And therefore, I said this in an earlier interview where I basically said, look, there's no reason why if there was someone wanted to protest against it, there's no reason why they couldn't do that, but they could do that away from the stadium, all right? And these things can be managed. And purely from an economic point of view, the question now is asked, can British Jews be protected? They are of us, they are our community, they have to be protected. But also from an economic point of view, when we talk about other big stage events, the West Midlands is capable of hosting these. We've done it. We had the Commonwealth Games. I have the NEC in my constituency. We've got football stadiums. We've got Premier League matches. We have Champions League matches played here. It is unacceptable that this has happened.
Saqib, thank you. That's Saqib Bhatti there, Conservative MP for Meriden and Solihull East. Appreciate him joining us. Let's go to Alex in Bristol, who's given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Alex, your thoughts this evening?
Well, it's very worrying. I'm Jewish. I'm very worried about the situation. More to the point, and I know you said it, funny enough, you covered it in something that you said earlier. We shouldn't be worried about the people that are attacking us. You wouldn't not buy a car because you'd be worried about a thief stealing it. You deal with the thieves. Everything's on its head. Yep. I don't understand what has happened to this country where we're saying you can't come because we're worried that bad people will do something to people that are just going about their ordinary life.
It's living in fear, Alex, and we cannot live that way. We've got to be proud. We've got to go about our daily lives, no matter what faith background, no matter who you are. You've got to feel safe in the streets. It's absolutely fundamental.
And can I just say, although I'm not a practicing Jew, I was actually married early in my life to a Muslim girl, and she's lovely and her family are lovely. Got no axe to grind. I don't know where this has all come from, but you've got this level of people. And, you know, I think you said it again in your show last week. I drove through Birmingham only last week, the week before, and I was shocked about the state of it and how the place looks. And, you know, no matter who was living there, whether they were black, white, green or yellow, I'd say the same thing. It's in an absolute state. And to live in fear and say, well, OK, so we're gonna say that the bad people or the people that are making these threats, they've won. We can't do that. You wouldn't do that with terrorists, and we didn't do that during the war. Why are we doing it now?
Very good points, Alex. Listen, thank you for your call. Really appreciate that. Graham in Bushy says, could the game be moved to a London ground where the Met Police might be able to control the outside protesters? Why should it be, Graham? Why can't it be at Villa Park? I mean, I totally get what you're saying there, but I just... that would be a form of capitulation as well. Another Graham in Devizes says, time to ban the Palestine flag, time to prescribe the Muslim Brotherhood. This ends now. We've had more than enough. Another person says, regarding the football ban, whichever way it goes now, the damage has been done and the anti-Semites have won. We are an anti-Jewish country. Jim in Cambridge says, just waiting now for the tweets from Gary Neville and Gary Lineker. It'd be interesting to see what they have to say. Jim, we have mentioned that earlier in the programme. We'll just check over the break, actually. We'll just have a wee look and see what noted football commentators, noted current affairs commentators Gary Lineker and Gary Neville have said about this, no doubt condemning the fact that football fans cannot make it to the game. We'll just have a wee look and see, and I'll tell you straight after the break, and I'm going to talk to Eric Pickles, Lord Pickles, about all of this. Stay with us.
One thing that I think that one concern that people do have is about, you know, the wider capability of espionage that comes from this super embassy, right? And that's on these alleged cables, which we haven't had confirmation of their existence yet. So it would be really, really good if the intelligence services would give us their assessment on the record of what they think those are. I mean, I don't know, maybe that's not possible because it's classified, but it seems pretty important to this decision if they think that the risk can be managed or not at all. If they don't think the risk can be managed, we shouldn't be having this conversation at all.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Paul says, let's remember Aston Villa fans wouldn't have been banned from Tel Aviv. Margaret in Birmingham says, I live in Birmingham, a football fan, and that MP do not speak for me. And all the people from Birmingham sending messages to Talk today in support of Israeli football fans. Thank you, Margaret. Appreciate that. We have checked Gary Neville and Gary Lineker's Twitter and their Instagram. In a shock move, Gary Neville, who seems to have an opinion on absolutely everything, apparently has no opinion. Nothing. Has absolutely nothing to say about a current affairs issue, a big news story involving football. You would imagine that he would have things to say. He has nothing to say. That speaks volumes. Gary Lineker, nothing on Twitter, but on Instagram, he has put something up. It's nothing to do with Aston Villa. It's nothing to do with the scourge of anti-Semitism in this country. He's got his dinner on there. He has put halibut in a Provençal sauce. So he's put the fish on there, not for the first time, talking a load of pollocks. Let's speak to Lord Pickles, Eric Pickles, who's the former Special Envoy on post-Holocaust issues, also former Cabinet Minister. Of course, Eric, thank you for joining me this evening. The government says that it is exploring what additional resources and support are required so all fans can attend. How important is it that this match goes ahead with Maccabi Tel Aviv fans there, do you think?
I think this is a line in the sand. We saw what happened in Manchester. We've seen what's been happening on our street corners, these festivals of hate. And I think that what has happened with this controversy, it has, perhaps inadvertently, given us a point where we say, this and no further. We cannot possibly think about banning Jews from being able to attend a football match, because that's effectively what it will be. And it does seem to me that if all the fine words that the government has said, and I agree with those fine words, this is it. This is the proof. This is what they've got to do. They've got to ensure that Britain is not a home of xenophobes, of bigots, and of anti-Semites, and that visiting fans will be treated like any other visiting fan. I'm sure there'll be people that come that are going to that want to cause trouble, but the majority won't. The majority are just going to be there to see a football match.
Eric, what do you think it says about this country that all fans of Maccabi Tel Aviv have been targeted here? They're all banned. So we're not talking about individual fans. There are some hooligans, we know that. But presumably, if the intelligence is there from the Israelis, from our own security services, they would know who these people are. And they could ban individual people, but they're banning everyone. Do you think the West Midlands Police has been forced to act politically here? Have they chosen to act politically here? What do you think's going on?
I think the West Midlands Police have been extraordinarily naive. Wouldn't they seem quite surprised at the controversy that their decision has taken? And secondly, I think, they said, well, they did some community engagement, and some members of the community didn't want to see Jews, Israelis come to Birmingham. That's not a reason. That's not a good reason. That's not a reason at all to ban this match. Part of the process of a free and open society is that we don't ban people. We don't ban entire races. We don't ban entire religions. We don't ban a nation. I mean, can you imagine what it would say if we decided that Chinese people couldn't be on our streets? Well, the Muslims couldn't be on our street. It would be an outrageous thing to do.
Well, on
But
that point,
somehow-
Eric, sorry to interrupt you, but that is a
No,
really
that's
good
okay.
point. Because anti-Semitism, to so many people, it's a form of racism. But some people think that's okay. We have footballers who are going to take the knee this weekend. We have people who wouldn't dream, as you say, of banning Chinese people, of banning Muslims, gay people, transgender people, or whatever. But somehow, this is okay. Why do you think that is? Why do you think people somehow think that? And for some reason, racism against Jewish people is accepted by so many people?
Well, anti-Semitism is one of the oldest hates that existed. It's been going for the best part of over 2,000 years. Sometimes it was the responsibility of the church for making life difficult. Sometimes it was civil society that made it difficult. But it's unacceptable. Israel is a democratic society. Nearly 20% of Israelis are Arabs. Who live alongside their Jewish neighbours in various degrees of harmony, and to suddenly to ignore what's going on in the rest of the world and to continue to persecute Israel is outrageous. People are marching on the streets now that the peace has started to operate.
And why that is?
So we know what it's about now. It's not about Gaza. It's about having a go at Israel. It's about having a go at Jewish people.
Should just say that we can see on the screen, if you're watching, that President Zelensky of Ukraine is at the door of the White House portico there, meeting Donald Trump there, and certainly they are meeting again. I can see Zelensky in some form of suit there. He's not in his military fatigues per se. We will, of course, bring you up to date with that as the programme continues. But let me go back to Lord Pickles. What should the government do now, Eric? How can they make this happen? Because they're saying they're looking at additional resources and support. Can they keep those fans safe? Can they keep the people of Birmingham safe when previously they thought the West Midlands Police anyway, thought they couldn't?
Well, they have to. The Home Secretary does have the powers under legislation to override the decision of the police authority and to insist that this match takes place and that those fans from Israel can attend. And they simply have to, because it's become more than a football match. Let's face it, it's become much more than a football match. It's about whether or not Jews can watch, can attend a football match. And to that, the answer's got to be yes, and it's got to be whatever it takes. And that's basically what the Prime Minister said. The Prime Minister said, whatever it takes, we'll ensure that our streets are safe for Jews.
We have 4 MPs now in Parliament. I know you're still a parliamentarian in the Lords, of course, but in the House of Commons, just up the corridor, we have 4 MPs now who were elected on a pro-Gaza ticket. One of them, Iqbal Mohammed, the independent MP for Dewsbury and Batley, said, "Thank you to all of those who put the safety of Aston Villa fans, Birmingham residents and the British public above the Zionist and political pressure to let Israeli hooligans and terrorists run riot in our country." Is that a responsible thing for any parliamentarian to say?
Well, there's a long answer to that, but the short answer is no. It's an outrageous thing for a Member of Parliament to say.
Do you worry about the sectarianisation of our politics?
I do. Our politics have become nasty. But this sectarianism is something that's entirely alien to British culture, and I say that deliberately. British culture is made up of Christians, of Muslims, of Hindus, of Jews, but this is entirely against everything that we stand for. And I'm afraid that gentleman, I think, has brought Parliament into disrepute, and I suspect he's going to have to pay the consequences for that.
Eric, thank you. That's Lord Pickles there. Eric Pickles, the former Special Envoy on post-Holocaust issues, also a former Cabinet Minister. Thank you to him. Thanks to everybody else who's been in touch as well. David in Beaconsfield says the MP says our area. It's not his area. It belongs to everyone. Great show, Peter. Another person says, I would like to know whether the Palestine hate marches will be banned before and during the match. Laura says, can someone please explain just what the Jewish community has done over the years to justify such hatred? I am sorry and angry. I'm not Jewish, but I have friends who are. They're very worried, and I am ashamed of my country. Stuart says, I don't know about you, but every time Starmer or Mahmood say they have to defend every Jew in the Jewish community, that they lose at least 1,000 votes to the Fruit and Nut Party, as Stuart says. Well, Zara Sultana says it's racist to point out that a sultana is a fruit, and that's what she says. So I'm not sure that's racist, but she says it is. Barnsley Joe says the police's stance is basically an admission that they're incapable of doing the job. This should mean that the police chief should be sacked for not maintaining basic capability of their forces. Thank you to Darryl in Blackburn. If Starmer doesn't overturn this ban, this country has fallen to Islamists. He needs to get a backbone. We're an embarrassment on the world stage already under Labour. Trump would put troops on the streets rather than be humiliated. It is disgusting. Linda says, Cardi P, Linda from Worcester here, we haven't heard from Reform UK, but if Kemi and the Tories are going to stand up to the Islamists in power in the UK and stand with the British Jewish people, she'll get my vote in 2029. We need to return this country to its Christian-free, welcoming roots as it once was. Well, I think Nigel Farage actually has tweeted about this, so we have heard from Reform UK. They do have an opinion on Joanna. We just don't have a clip to play out from them. Joanna in Salisbury, hi Cardi P, on the football game. If it can't be played with all fans safely, it should be cancelled and points given to Tel Aviv and all games suspended at the Aston ground, and they play away all season as punishment. Businesses make a lot of money out of the fans, so the locals will lose out. Sarah says Ayub Khan should resign. Should be a petition for this. Neil says just kick Villa out of the cup. It's simple. Paul says, what about British Jews that are Maccabi supporters? Are they not safe in their own country? Justin and Hove, loving the show. If police cannot guarantee the safety of fans attending, it should be played behind closed doors. Why can't the police impose restrictions on any protests, say in a 5-mile radius? Another person in Birmingham says, football fan, and that MP does not speak for me. Starmer has to get a grip and sort this out. Lots more opinions coming your way. We'll also take a look inside the Sun tomorrow. I know they are covering this, and John Lucas from the news desk will be with us in just a second. Stay with us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to Leslie, who's been in touch and says, my heart goes out to our fellow Jewish citizens. I've never been so ashamed of the government we have in office. More on that story in a second. Richard says, if West Midlands Police cannot ensure the safety of Jewish football fans, they are not fit for purpose and should be disbanded. It's disgraceful. We must stop the Islamification of Britain. Sean in Norfolk says, the fact that the majority of the populace is ignored with petitions of millions and a few thousand Islamists are granted theirs without debate should terrify everyone who is really in charge of this country, says Sean. Just to say that in the White House at the moment, President Trump is having discussions with Zelensky. Let's just hear a little bit of that.
Glad to meet you again, Mr. President. Thank you very much for the invitation. Again, my congratulations with your successful ceasefire in the Middle East.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you did it. And I think this is the momentum to finish Russia's war against Ukraine. I think that, yes, we understand that Putin is not ready. I think not ready, but I think that I'm confident that with your help we can stop this war, and we really need it. We see that they don't have successful steps on the battlefield, and it's good. I think that their army is weak now, but a lot of loss. Good. I think that their army is weak now.
That is the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, talking at the cabinet table in the Roosevelt Room to Donald Trump. We will, of course, bring you any breaking lines from their discussions between now and 7 o'clock, and I'm sure Kevin O'Sullivan will afterwards. But let's take a look inside the Sun with John Lucas, who is the night news editor. John, great to have you in the studio. Some big news coming, we think, on Prince Andrew.
Yeah, major news on Prince Andrew. So at the weekend, we had the story of Andrew's email to Epstein, which had come after this. Remember this car crash Newsnight interview where he told Emily Maitlis that he'd cut off all contact with Epstein at a certain point. We got hold of the email that said that showed that actually he had contacted Epstein. Therefore, the implication of that being that he's actually lied to not obviously just the nation and Maitlis, but by extension he would have not told the truth to the palace, to his brother the king and all the rest of it. So we knew that the king is at a big tipping point here. Something has to be done about Andrew. He's not a working royal anymore, lost a lot of his roles and the things that he would have been doing in the past, but he obviously still has all these titles now. The king had a lot of options. Now what is breaking at the moment is we understand that he is ready to drop the Duke of York title, which is huge. I mean, we had this story sort of ready to go. That this option was on the table to lose the title Duke of York, but for the king couldn't have done it unilaterally.
Wouldn't have been his choice.
He wouldn't have been able to just remove the title. It would have had. There's a thing called the Titles Deprivation Act 1917, which was brought in to take away dukedoms from German princes during the First World War. So it would have been a parliament. As we understand it, Parliament would have had to get involved. Now, I'm not sure, haven't read all the details, it's just broken before we come on air. I don't know whether Andrew is voluntarily giving this up.
And whether he can do it voluntarily.
Whether he can do it voluntarily, that'll have to be looked at, or it may be a rubber stamp sort of issue. He's also set to lose the Order of the Garter, potentially. So that is the the highest order of chivalry in the UK. It was bestowed upon him by the Queen in 2006. That can be removed by the king without Parliament.
Because those are the personal choice of the monarch, aren't they? But it obviously would have been his mother who made him a Knight of the Garter.
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often. It happened during the First World War to Kaiser Wilhelm. So, that's how rare this sort of thing is. But yeah, look, it comes off the back of... He told Newsnight... So, do you remember that the picture of him with Epstein?
Yeah.
It was in 2010.
And they're walking in the park.
That's it. And he told Emily Maitlis, look, I did that. It was the honourable thing to do. It's like when you break up with a girlfriend or whatever, you don't do it over text. If you're...
front it up.
You front it up, and that's what he said he was doing. But there was later, that infamous picture of him with Virginia Giuffre was published. And actually what we found out was that he emailed Epstein and said, immediately after that was published, and said, it seems we're in this together and we'll have to rise above it. Keep in touch and we'll play some more soon. It's absolutely gross when you put in the context of what Epstein was getting up to. And it's obviously just been intolerable. There are other options for the king. Andrew could be removed from the line of succession. Again, that would involve Parliament. Parliament would have to do that. You can't remove his title as prince. He was born a prince, so he'll stay a prince.
There's a big issue previously as well about him being a councillor of state as well, and they added different people to that rather than taking people away, because constitutionally it would be quite difficult. Lots to come in the Sun tomorrow on that. The big story that so many of our viewers and listeners are getting in touch about, and I will get to more calls in just a second, this Aston Villa row. The government now saying they may sort it out?
Yeah, but not today. There won't be a decision on it today, but everyone's going to be aware of what the story is. Don't need to recap it. The issue that they've sort of created now is they do let the Haifa fans come to the match. They are going to have to throw a massive, huge security operation because of the spotlight that's been shone on this. They are really, really going to have to make sure
listen,
that
John,
nothing happens.
You know I am not a massive football fan, but I didn't know the match was happening. I only knew the match was happening because of this. In fact, and it's now in the public consciousness. It's now a much bigger security issue than it would have been previously.
Absolutely, and well, look, it might not have been on everybody's radar. About 10 days ago, we did have this Islamic preacher, Azra Rashid. I don't know if you've been talking about him.
We have. We played a clip of him,
Right, so and he was talking about, well, look, we're not going to show mercy to the fans. Now, this all stems back to the issues that these fans had in Amsterdam, where there was a organisation of people coming into Amsterdam to have it out, have a row with the football fans. And obviously, we know there was some distasteful chants on the other side, but the point is that there was a pre-organised action against them before they even got to the city. So it's a very bad faith argument that people have made.
Totally, including one of the MPs involved, actually, the local MP, who didn't find time to talk about that in his message that he posted on social media. 7 people hospitalised, more than 20 injured after those pro-Palestinian crowds ran amok, targeted the visiting Israelis, as John says there, and this was after chat room messages were exchanged calling for a Jew hunt, as they put it. Let's talk about the drone war. Soldiers in Ukraine's front line using remote-controlled trucks as a lifeline for supplies.
Yeah, absolutely. So Spotlight is coming back onto Ukraine now. The way President Trump would say is he's sorted out the Middle East. Remains to be seen. But
Ukraine's next.
What it does mean is his attention can go back onto Ukraine, and we're seeing Zelensky's in the White House. Trump was on the phone to Putin yesterday, and our defence editor, Jerome Starkey, is back on the ground in Ukraine. You know, he's a very brave man, Jerome. Putin doesn't like him much. But he's, that's what he does. That's his job. And he's back over there, and he's in Kharkiv. Is where his dispatch is from. So it's 20 kilometres from the Russian border, and it just sort of shines a light. The report tomorrow on the nature of modern warfare. There's so many drones up in the sky now. It's absolutely deadly to do anything. Move about behind the lines and to resupply the lines. So what the Ukrainians are doing now, you've got your drones up in the sky, they've got remote-controlled drone trucks resupplying the lines, and we're talking to all the drone operators just about the dangers involved and the benefits of this technology, which, hopefully the British government as well are keeping very close eye on what the Ukrainians are doing, and we're getting that stuff for ourselves as well.
Well, that'll be really interesting to read tomorrow in the Sun. Just before you go, tell us about the Bengal bad boy, because I'm a big cat person. I've actually just, this is editorially relevant, Ofcom, if you're watching. I've just written a book called Political Animals, and the Bengal bad boy is not going to be in there because he's been inflicting real suffering on residents in Buckinghamshire.
Yeah, Bengal bad boy. Well, he sounds quite cool, actually.
Yeah, doesn't he? Sort of cat you'd quite like to get to know.
Yeah.
A cool cat.
But the other cats don't like him in the estate. So he's a Bengal cat. They are a cross between a Asian leopard and a domestic cat called an Egyptian Mau, I think.
Okay.
I can't pretend that I knew that before I
for this story. Well, we learn,
but yeah,
journalists, we learn new things every day.
He's called Elijah, and he lives with, I won't name him, but he's actually a big director of Facebook, this guy. And they've got this lovely cat that costs about £1,000, so you have to have a few bob to own one. But they've actually had to call in the antisocial behaviour team, the local police force. It's a lovely place in Newton Pagnell where he lives, but this cat is terrorising all the other cats in the street, tears into shreds. He gets into people's very nice homes there.
Tears them up.
He tears them up. He's weed all over the carpets in these houses. We got a quote from one of the neighbours. He insists on coming into my garden to torture my cats.
That's
He's
dreadful.
double the size of them, and he is brutal.
Wow.
And the cops are involved, and it's possible this cat could end up with an ASBO.
Well, listen, there is yet another argument, and the argument is get a rescue cat. Don't spend £1,000 on a cat. Get a rescue cat. Adopt and shop. Give an animal a second chance. Don't be buying these designer cats, because that's what you get. John, thank you very much indeed. The Titles Deprivation Act will not take away John's title of Night News Editor of The Sun. No Act of Parliament will be passed. We'll see you next week. That is John Lucas there, the Night News Editor of The Sun. Plenty more of your opinions coming your way. If you want to get your voice in the air between now and 7, 0344 499 1000.
One thing that I think that one concern that people do have is about, you know, the wider capability of espionage that comes from this super embassy, right? And that's on these alleged cables, which we haven't had confirmation of their existence yet. So it would be really, really good if the intelligence services would give us their assessment on the record of what they think those are. I mean, I don't know, maybe that's not possible because it's classified, but it seems pretty important to this decision if they think that the risk can be managed or not at all. If they don't think the risk can be managed, we shouldn't be having this conversation at all.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Someone asked about the Muslim Brotherhood earlier on. It is not banned. It is not a prescribed organisation in this country. I think it should be. Reform UK would make it a prescribed organisation, they say. Lots more opinions coming your way. A couple of callers on the line, but let's hear a couple of voice notes first. Mart has been in touch. The big story everybody wants to talk about today, the Aston Villa match with Maccabi Tel Aviv.
Villa Park is smack bang in the middle of a large Islamic community. I understand why this decision is being made. The reality is that Westminster Police, they would have to have a huge amount of cops on the ground, because there is a real risk here to both sets of the community. The Tel Aviv fans are going to come over, and potentially they are going to be targeted by members of the Islamic community. I understand the decision, and I understand where they're coming from. It's difficult, and it's a shame that sport has to be political.
Mark, thanks for that. Let's hear from Paul.
I have to say that the decision made by Chief Constable Guildford and West Midlands Police is one of the most disgusting decisions ever made by a man who supposedly supports law and order. He should be utterly ashamed of himself, and he should stand in the corner for at least half an hour and reflect over this dreadful decision. We are now encouraging anti-Semitism. I'd also like to add that over the last 10-15 years we've had absolute buffoons promoted within the police, and this is why we are now at this situation where law and order is not available anymore, and we are kowtowing to these people that try to rule us.
Let's hear a final voice note now from Tristan.
I'm absolutely speechless about this, but it just means we just kowtow to Islamists. Simple as that. We let them in Parliament, we let them in prominent positions, and we're letting them dictate rules to do with everyday life. And now they are now getting involved into bringing politics into sport. It's an absolute disgrace.
Mark in Glasgow says, of course, Jewish people should be allowed to attend football matches. Everyone should be able to enjoy a football match, regardless of their nationality or faith. I remember growing up in Glasgow and the number of anti-Catholic and Protestant and Catholic bigotry there was between Rangers and Celtic fans who can't behave are caught and should face a lifetime ban. Great show. Neil says, Cardi P, if the police can't police this, they should be put under special measures beyond it. It's a joke. It is Islam appeasing. Enough is enough. Jane says, perhaps we need to have more scrutiny on Birmingham. We always focus on London. Sounds like some parts of Birmingham, it is even worse what is going on there. Jane, absolutely. And we are the station that 82% of our viewers and listeners are outside London, and we're not London-centric. We do stories right across the UK and indeed the world. Kate in Manchester says, proud British people should stand together, shoulder to shoulder, create a human shield for the Israeli football fans to watch the match at Villa Park. We cannot stand by and allow this to happen. We need to stand up, stand together, and stop history repeating itself. And Tony in Woking says, it's not just football. The Israeli-sponsored cycling team, Israeli Premier Tech, have had to remove Israel from their name and the Star of David from their shirts because of threats and intimidation to their riders and supporters. Some riders were even attacked during a Volta a España, which I think is a Spanish cycling competition. Tony in Woking says. Vicky in County Durham, you're on the air. What would you like to say?
Tony, I'm on.
What would you like to say?
Hi, Peter.
Hi
Good
there.
evening to you. It's regarding this absolute farcical thing with the fans from Tel Aviv and the Islamists trying to take over everything that we do and say, and no one is calling them out.
Yeah.
It's absolutely shameful.
Well, I think that's a really good point. And the question is, if there is a threat to safety, where is the threat to safety coming from? And the government hasn't said that. We haven't had these independent MPs talking about that either, have we?
No, we haven't. We haven't. And the biggest threat is from these Islamists, and it really is beyond a joke. No one's calling them out, and they need to be held to account for what they're doing and what they're saying.
Vicky, I think that's a really good point. Thank you for making it. That's Vicky in County Durham. Paul in Leeds, you're on the air. What would you like to say?
Hi, good evening to you.
Good evening, hi.
So, 2 hours ago, your Samara posted something about Starmer appearing at a meeting where to kick Israel out of the FA. Out of FIFA.
That was in 2015 that he stood in front of that. Yeah, I've seen that going around the internet. Yeah.
So last week, when they knew about this decision that they were going to not allow,
well, they knew it was a possibility a week ago, but yes.
A possibility, but they're not idiots. So you can't assume it, but you know it probably was.
Sure.
But anyway. So now they're annoyed because they didn't expect such a blowback as this happened. So now they're trying to change it. So what they should do is ban ban the demonstrations, ban any demonstrations completely, allow the supporters, there's only going to be a few hundred, and if there are anyone there who's trying to attack them, like who attacked in Amsterdam, then they should have water tanks, and the water tanks should fight them.
Well, and they should have the intelligence to be able to pick these people up, Paul, who the small number who will be a problem, and actually police this safely for the vast majority of fans who want to go there and just enjoy the football.
Yeah, I mean, there was Uber drivers who did this in Amsterdam the other month. But just as another point, where the Manchester attack the other week, when Starmer Mahmood came, they went for a photo opportunity outside the synagogue. But I know some of the medical staff who saved the lives of somebody who got shot. They never went to the hospital to visit the wounded. They never went to thank all the medical staff, and they were so upset they couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
If it would have been,
in fairness, Storm, I know what you mean, and that must be very, very galling, Paul. In fairness, there was a clip of Starmer talking to some of the senior people, but you know that some of the more junior people should have been thanked as well. It's a very, very good point there. I don't know the full detail of that. Gareth's in Derbyshire, final call of Talk Drive today. Gareth, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Good evening. Yeah, I think there's a wider point with this, because I don't know if you realise that on Tuesday Italy played Israel in Udine.
Yes, yeah, we mentioned that earlier on, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, and the match took place. They knew there were going to be protests, but the Italian police dealt with it.
Yeah, the sharpshooters on the roof, I'm told. Yeah.
Yeah, so they dealt with it. I was actually in Italy with my wife the week before, because we'd had a little tour there, and I was in Bologna, and they had one of these protests, and the police dealt with it. And I think the issue to me is that the police shouldn't be dictating what happens and what doesn't happen in terms of events. It's up to them to just deal with situations as they arise. And, I mean, the idea of banning somebody from Israel coming to England who's got a passport and is perfectly free to do so.
Yeah, and totally a totally law-abiding person, yeah.
It's not on. It's completely not on. It sounds to me like a police state, and I'm not happy with that at all. Now, you know, it's a problem to me. I think the police they do it with English football games. They tell you when you've got to kick off. You know, when I was growing up, we used to be able to play Nottingham Forest at 3 o'clock, but every time we play them now, we have to play them at 12 o'clock or something like that, because the police says.
I know what you mean, yeah. Gareth, listen, thank you very, very much indeed. We've got some